Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the lands of Anishinaabe Nation. This spot where we gather is the traditional lands of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the Bikini Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we, as the beneficiaries of the treaty, must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Mr. Mayor, we do not have a supplementary agenda this evening. Rules for the council chambers. The municipality of Chatham-Kent supports open meetings that welcome debate of public policy issues in an atmosphere of inclusiveness, integrity, civility, fairness, and respect for differing points of view. Anyone conducting themselves in a way that disturbs, disrupts, or impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting, interrupts or makes derogatory statements or hate speech, defamatory comments about councillors, staff, speakers, or fellow members of the public may result in the removal from the premises. We ask that you do not approach council if they are seated in their council seat around the council horseshoe. The use of posters, signage, and literature is also prohibited. We have 4 disclosures of pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, for open session agenda, and they are 11A, Councillor Story, the first planning application with regards to 7511 and 7527 Talbot Trail. Conflict of interest by Councillor Story for planning application B with regards to 13649 Longwoods Road, Community of Camden. And item 11E, Journeys Recovery Home, 20 Joseph Street, Community of Chatham. Councillor Story has a conflict. The final conflict is Councillor McGrail with regards to item 16B, the Contractual Enforcement Officer's Appointment Bylaw. We'll move on to planning services.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Planning meeting process. The process to be followed for each application will be as follows. 1, the clerk will announce each individual planning item. 2, the mayor will ask if there's anyone present other than the applicant with an interest in the application and to indicate so by raising their hand. 3, the clerk will advise if written or video submissions have been received. 4, if someone present other than the applicant indicates an interest in the item, there will be a presentation by administration. 5, individuals with an interest in the application other than the applicant will be asked to proceed to the podium, provide their name and address, and address council. 6, the applicant will be asked if they wish to proceed to the podium and address council. 7, administration will be asked if they have any comments based on any discussion that may have occurred. And 8, council will be asked what action it wishes to take with regard to each item. Notice, if any person or public body that files an appeal of a decision of council in respect of the proposed applications does not make oral or written submissions to the municipal clerk before the proposal is approved, they are not entitled to appeal a decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal, if otherwise eligible, unless in the opinion of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party to the appeal. Information on council's actions tonight will be posted on the municipal website. All persons who have made a request or who have made a written or oral submission regarding a particular planning item will receive a notice of council's decision, including appeal procedures. Any other person who wishes to receive a notice of council's decision must submit a written request to the municipal clerk. Thank you.
11A, applications for consent and zoning bylaw amendment, Lana DeBoer and estate of Jeffrey DeBoer and Walter and Paula Brown, 7511 and 7527 Talbot Trail, Community of Raleigh, South Kent. Mr. Mayor, we have 1 conflict of interest from Councillor Story, and I have not received any deputations today.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant and or the agent with an interest in the application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor Thompson and Councillor Doyle, can I get you to move this, please?
Happy to move it.
Seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to vote.
Oh yes, by the way, Council, the voting system is down, so I will have to do a call out. Sorry.
So can we, on these particular ones, we're just going to go opposed, or in favor, opposed, and if we get to something that involves that, we'll go through.
Sure, it is recorded in the minutes, so as long as if we do have anybody opposed, I just need to know those for the minutes. Thank you.
All in favor? Put up your hand. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carried.
Councillor Harrigan?
Oh.
In favor.
Thank you. Thank you. 11B, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Thames Sale Yard Limited, 13649 Longwoods Road, Community of Camden, East Kent. Councillor Story has declared a conflict of interest, and I have not received any deputations today.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant and or the agent with an interest in the application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor Wright and Councillor McGrail, can I get you to move this, please?
I'll move that. Thank you.
So seconded.
Any questions? Councillor Doyle?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. So the lot to the right looks like it's got quite a few ponds. I know this is very similar to what this this property was used for before. Is there any worry that we have that any of the new usage would run off into the ponds, or is it going to be kept in like with inside the building?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Councillor, just to indicate that there is a separate parcel in between the parcel that you're talking about with the ponds and the subject property, so there would maintain a decent setback to protect those features on the property.
So we're not worried about that at all then? Doesn't look like? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, all in favor, please put up your hand. Opposed?
And Councillor Harrigan? Thank you. 11C, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Chatham-Kent Public Utilities Commission, 42 Lion Ave North, Community of Tilbury, West Kent. No conflict of interest and no deputations were received.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant or the agent with an interest in the application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor Anderson and Councillor Harrigan, can I get you to move this, please?
I'm happy to move that.
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Hands up. Opposed?
And Councillor Harrigan? Thank you. 11D, application for zoning bylaw amendment, 2472111 Ontario Inc., and Mohammed Surhan, 575 Queen Street, Community of Chatham, City. No conflict of interest, and Council, one deputation was received by email. It was sent to you at noon today.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant and or the agent with an interest in the application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor Finn and Councillor Bondi, can I get you to move this, please?
Happy to move it.
And seconded.
Councillor Doyle, you had a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Just have a procedural question, I guess. What's the procedure for like somebody who's going through this process, for them to kind of go public with their information? Like, are we telling them, hey, this is probably going to go through, you're allowed to go public with information? And I'm not asking for this one specifically and two other ones where I've heard that, and we saw some deputations, that things are happening on locations with regards to the approval. It seems like the approval's already done. People are saying they're going to be there when we haven't even voted on this stuff yet. So I'm just wondering what the procedure is for when, I guess, people can officially move in, can go public, or with the information that they're moving, or that kind of thing.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Councillor, just to speak to this one, I don't know of any issues in terms that arise from the use itself, but there is public notices issued, as is a legislative requirement for Planning Act applications. So neighbors notice would have been sent 20 days prior to the meeting to inform neighbors of the application and to provide information on how they can participate in the public process. But in terms of enforcement with this property, I'm not aware of.
Oh yeah, I'm not worried about enforcement or anything. Like, this is going to go through, it's going to be approved, and the other two that I'm talking about, would they be approved anyways? Like, there's no way we're going to stop them based on what they are. It's more just, I've gotten some calls from our constituents, not necessarily this one, but with another one where we haven't approved it yet, and they've been told they're allowed to start doing things on that property before council's approved it. So I just want to know what the procedure is for something that's going through the planning procedure before we've actually approved the zoning change. Like, are we telling them, yeah, you should be good, go ahead and you can start setting up shop, or how does that work? Are they supposed to wait until we approve it?
Yeah, I think that I kind of understand where you're coming from with these and from other cases, but whatever use is conducted on a property needs to be compliant with zoning. They enter into the zoning process to rezone a property for specific uses if it's not permitted. It is a public process. There are situations at times where somebody may be conducting a use unknowingly that there's a zoning bylaw infraction. In those cases, what's typical is the bylaw enforcement will reach out to the owner and indicate that a zoning amendment would be required. And administration works with that property owner. So if they engage in the rezoning process, then typically we permit the use to a certain extent or whatever until that zoning process plays itself out and there's a decision from council, and then there remains the right to appeal after a council decision as well. So
providing they're following all the right steps and they're doing what they should be doing, and it looks like it's going to be approved, then they can kind of operate a little bit ish. That makes sense. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed?
And Councillor Harrigan? Thank you. 11E, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Journeys Recovery Home, 20 Joseph Street, Community of Chatham City. We have a conflict of interest by Councillor Story. We have received 6 deputations via email. 1 was just emailed, and council received that at noon today. 3 are present this evening, and we will go through those shortly, and then 2 more for the applicant. And, sorry, I'm just going to my screen. I also wanted to mention that the clerk's office has received a petition in support of the application. It has 2,537 unconfirmed signatures, which are not all from Chatham-Kent. When the clerk's office reviewed it, we came up with the numbers of approximately 1,016 Chatham-Kent signatures online and approximately 300 written. Therefore, 1,305 unconfirmed Chatham-Kent residents were supporting through the petition. So I will turn it over for deputations. Did you enter the presentation first? Okay, thank you.
thank you, Mayor Caniff. So the municipality has received an application for zoning bylaw amendment concerning the property located at 20 Joseph Street in Chatham City. Subject property is located northeast of the St. Clair and Grand Avenue intersection. It's adjacent to residential uses to the north and to the west, and commercial uses that are along Grand Avenue and then further west along St. Clair. The property is approximately 4,400 square feet in area and contains an existing single detached dwelling and 1 accessory structure. The lands are designated residential area in the Chatham-Kent official plan and zoned residential low density third. And the application is to permit the existing dwelling to be used as a transitional housing facility. So the applicant, Journeys Recovery Home, is a nonprofit organization, and they provide housing and programming to support men on their journey of recovering from substance abuse and addiction. The programs run approximately 3 months in length, and the supportive care is faith-based programming and provides a sober living environment. So the proposed use is not permitted under the current zoning. It does fall under a temporary care facility definition in the Chatham-Kent zoning bylaw. So the application is to rezone the property to a site-specific residential low-density third zone, to add a temporary care facility as an additional permitted use, and to also set the minimum required off-street parking spaces for this specific use at 3 spaces. To provide council a little bit of context for the site and the neighborhood. So with the site, the 3 parking spaces that are being proposed or required for the property would be to the rear of the lot, off the alleyway that's accessed from Joseph Street. So to the left of the alleyway is a commercial corridor. So the parking would be away from the adjacent residential use to the right of the dwelling in this picture. The facility will house it'll contain 8 beds in the existing dwelling, It will house up to 7 residents, up to 7 residents at one time and 1 full-time staff. The parking requirement of 3 spaces, so the residents of this facility would not be able to have access to their own vehicle. So the parking would primarily be for staff and visitors. In the neighborhood context, as I stated, it's adjacent to commercial and residential uses, so this area consists of residential and highway commercial land uses, which exists and is planned for the area. This map here is the current zoning of the area. So the parcels in the purple are residential parcels, primarily made up of residential uses today. The area in the yellow is that highway commercial corridor along Grand Avenue and St. Clair Street. So these parcels are primarily commercial type uses. There's existing residential uses that have been sort of historic uses for these sites. It's important to note that the lands in yellow are zoned either urban commercial, highway commercial first, or urban commercial, highway commercial second densities. And in those zones, the temporary care facility, which is being proposed to the subject property, is permitted as of right. I'd also like to point out that that the applicant has retained a planning consultant who had submitted a planning justification report in support of this application, and a public meeting was also held in February of this year to invite residents in the neighborhood to listen to the applicant and to provide any comments or questions to the applicant as well. So overall, the proposal has been reviewed in the context of the provincial policy statement and Chatham-Kent official plan, and is deemed to be consistent with the policies of those documents. And with that, it is recommended that zoning bylaw amendment application file D14C0424J concerning the lands known as 20 Joseph Street, community of Chatham City, to rezone the lands to the residential low density 3rd exception 1715 zone, to A, add temporary care facilities additional permitted use, and B, set the minimum required off-street parking at 3 spaces be approved and the implementing bylaw be adopted. Thank you.
Council, do you have any questions of administration regarding this report? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. We have 3 deputations that were emailed in today. So we'll start with Mateo Hillman, and on deck will be Reverend Michael Copps, followed by Christine Verhallen. I'll remind each of these speakers this evening you have a maximum of 5 minutes for the deputation. The timer will be on the screen for your convenience.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. I've been a resident of Chatham-Kent all 46 years of my life, and I've worked at CAS Supervised Access for 13 years, a local group home for 4 years, and over the past 20 years, I've done various church-related outreach within our community. I've seen families hurting because of the reality of addiction. Our city is struggling, and over the past several years, a darkness has come over our city, and it's getting worse and worse each day. Before, we had to go into homes to see the hurt and the despair, but now the hurting and despair are all out in the open. The question that has been asked is, what is the solution? We have seen money given to organizations over and over that battle this struggle, but is there even a dent being made in the streets of our city? How many sons, daughters, mothers, and fathers have we lost? I'm here to tell you that there's a solution to this crisis that plagues our city, and Journey's Recovery Home is a huge part of that solution. Journey's Recovery Home is a faith-based home, a home that doesn't push faith on men that come into this home, but shows them through love that there is hope and a way to overcome this disease, and that way is through a relationship with Jesus. I have seen these men come into this home broken, scared, discouraged, and still fighting the world. Through the environment that Journey's Recovery Home and the support of many local churches and the people of these churches, I have seen men change. Not only do they overcome their addictions, but I've seen that there is hope and purpose to their lives. I've seen them get reconnected with their children and families, get jobs, and go back into society as new men. Not only that, but these men serve with us at our soup kitchen, at our church, And we've seen these men encourage those who come in that are struggling and seeking help. I see them building relationships with these families and people, sharing with them with their struggles and their victories. The men of Journeys Recovery Home break the norm when it comes to men who are struggling from addiction. Where people feel that it takes years for a person to overcome their addiction, we are seeing young men being transformed quickly and being productive once again in society because of the support of their new family in the Lord. I strongly urge you, counselors, to approve the zoning of this home. If we could ask the mothers and family members of these young men who stand here to testify what this home and the support has done to their sons, it would be no less than a miracle. Yes, miracles do happen. There's no statistics that show the impact of that faith-based recovery home that has on a city, but we are seeing over and over again lives being changed because of Journeys Recovery Home, and that impact is spreading through these men to their families and to the community around them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Reverend Michael Copps. On deck is Christine Verhalen.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Reverend Michael Copps. I've pastored at Praise Fellowship Church here in Chatham for the past 25 years. I've also been a chaplain with the Chatham-Kent Police Service for the past 14 years. Born and raised in Chatham, and I'm blessed to call this city my home. My wife, Lisa, and myself have been married for 31 years. We were foster parents for 13 of those years, having over 100 children through our home in that time span. We have 7 children, 6 of which are biologically not ours, but we've raised them on our own, most of them since they were babies. I work with people, that's what I do, and that's been my job for decades. I hear people's problems and I see their needs firsthand as a pastor and as a police chaplain. I've personally witnessed the consequences that someone's addiction has, not just on kids, but entire families, and almost always stemming into our community. This is why I'm here. I've seen our city change drastically over the years of my life, and I've come today to humbly request that council would consider adjusting the zoning for Journeys Recovery Home. I've seen the fruitful results and the benefit to several lives through the operation of this amazing facility. I've seen a real, genuine, lasting healing in these men who have a newfound hope, a new lease on life, if you will. Men who are now working, giving back, and contributing to their community. Men who desire to live a healthy and productive life through restoration for them and their families. Council, over the past years, there have been many different ideas, different plans and suggestions towards lowering the sickness of addiction and homeless in our city. It's something that we all want to see, and it's all something that we've all considered in different ways to bring healing for the drug addicted, to fix these difficult issues. However, with all due respect, the outcome thus far has turned out to be only Band-Aid solutions. I think we've all seen that. I'm not implying that these weren't good ideas, but there has, as of yet, to be any lasting fruit to any of them. I'm here to share that I have personally seen successful results through the program of Journeys Recovery Home. I've seen something that's working, something that's taking these guys off the streets, and it's also giving them an opportunity to not only heal from addiction, but to start fresh as a contributing member of our society, restored to the community and to their families. These are gentlemen who are different now. They're healed, they're proactive, and they're continuing to seek to stay that way. They're attending church regularly. They want to be a part of society. They're attending different meetings that we have throughout the week, and they are an active part in our soup kitchen that we have every Tuesday at the church. They want to give back. When I talk to them, they say, Pastor Mike, I want to give back, and that's exactly what they're doing. I see it all the time. Because of this program, these men now have a hope that has replaced the hopelessness that they've lived with for so very long. This is a program that's working. Journeys Recovery Home, I believe, is the answer that we've all been looking for such a very long time. It works. I've seen the results. I've spoken at the graduations, and I now have relationships and friendships with many of the men that have graduated. Your worship, council, we finally have something that is successful, something that's answered the million-dollar question that we've all had. What can we do? And how can we fix this? And it's right here. It's already happening, and your decision tonight can make it even more effective than it already is. Council, I would like to humbly ask that you would consider the rezoning of Journey's Recovery Home for the benefit of us all, for the benefit of our great city as a whole. I want to say thank you for your time and the honor of speaking to you this evening. Thank you, and God bless you and our city.
Thank you. Last speaker is Christine Verhalen. I understand that the two applicants, and they will speak a bit later.
Good evening. My name is Christine Verhalen. I grew up in Chatham-Kent, and after high school, I moved away for about a decade to big cities like Helsinki, Windsor, London, Calgary, and Toronto. I came home to big city problems in our beloved small town community. Nowadays, I work at a nursery here in Chatham and volunteer every Monday at Journey's Recovery Home as the recreation leader. I want to share with you what I've been seeing at Journey's Home. I see guys that have hit rock bottom that are rebuilding their lives bit by bit. They're learning new skills and challenging themselves with new activities. They're learning basic life skills again, like sewing and repairing their own clothing. They are building connections and supporting each other in their recovery. Through addiction, a person is broken down, connections lost, and self-esteem plummets. Once addiction takes a hold of an individual, their identity becomes consumed by those bad choices. I have seen this, how the home nurtures men through regaining self-esteem, stability, and purpose so they can become productive members of society again. Chatham has its issues with substance use disorders and mental health. However, there are limited places for individuals to step away from their addiction and rebuild essentially their entire identity. Journey's Recovery Home is a part of the solution of this growing problem. I see these guys a little bit differently than most. I don't know their history or what led them to Journey's Recovery Home. I get to do the fun activities like arts and crafts and hikes and walks, which they love. I see the childlike joy when they master a new skill like crochet. I see how learning a new skill like crochet not only humbles these men, but gives them a deeper appreciation of their own abilities. Journey's Recovery Home gives men a chance to rejoin society in a different version of themselves. It goes beyond housing and taking care of their basic needs. It focuses on the individual, their growth, development, return to society. The immersive experience rebuilds societal connections with a family approach in mind. They live together, make meals together, and do house chores together, building a network that is a brotherhood. Journey's Recovery Home is an important part of the response to addiction, homelessness, and mental health issues facing our community. I see the value every week as I spend time with the guys and observe their progress and get to know the individual that they have value. Thank you, guys.
Is there anyone else present other than the applicant or the agent with an interest in the application? If so, please raise your hand. So yes, so you can come up and you'll have 5 minutes. If you could identify your name and where you live, please. Thanks.
I'd like to say thank you for letting me speak. My name's Margaret Butler, and I live at 27 Joseph Street, directly across from Journey House. And I'd like to start by saying thank you for saving my neighborhood. Before Journey House came, I had been there 7 years, and petty theft was on the rise. People sleeping in the streets was drifting up from downtown. Drug addiction and the people doing the dance walk of addiction were coming down my road. And people that are in active use want to avoid one thing: accountability. I now have the answer to that problem across my house. There's healing going on right in front of my eyes every day. I am watching people complete the 3-month program, healing not only addiction issues, but mental health issues through the power of Christianity. They don't just give outreach at soup kitchens. They are banging on the doors of senior citizen neighbors I have that beforehand, as a single mom and a survivor of 17 years of domestic violence at the hand of a man, restoring my faith in men by cutting my grass, shoveling my snow, asking if I'm okay, checking in on me and the kids. They don't need 7 beds, they need 12. They need one of the empty schools. This is the solution to Chatham's problems. I don't think I need to say much more than that.
Is there anyone else? Seeing none, I understand there's a couple deputations from the applicants.
Yes, we have two deputations from the applicants. First, I'll call on Matt Kelly, followed by Zoe Mendler.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here tonight. It's an honor. My name is Matthew Kelly. I am the program coordinator at Journey's Recovery Home. I was born January 14th, 1983 in Chatham, Ontario. I am a fifth-generation Chathamite on both sides of my family. Including our children, we have 6 generations raised in this beautiful city. Growing up in Chatham was a great experience for me, from playing AAA hockey, travel baseball, riding our bikes to the Wheels Inn with friends, to catching snakes down in Indian Creek to bring home and scare my mom with. For me, things took a turn in my teen years, and I started experimenting with substances after a very traumatic experience. Things very quickly progressed, and from recreational use to full-blown addiction. I was an addict who lived in shelters and was homeless for 20 years. I saw and experienced everything that life had to offer. I tried to seek help for my addiction, but reached many roadblocks, which were frustrating not only for me, but for my loved ones as well. Unable to receive treatment here, I tried many secular programs outside of Chatham over the years to no avail, and struggled to maintain sobriety upon returning home due to the lack of resources and supports available in the Chatham-Kent community. I would get sober to come home and repeat the same behaviors over and over. It wasn't until I accepted my Lord and Savior, Jesus, that everything changed. It was only through my faith in God and by His grace that produced lasting effects, not only for my sobriety, but in every area of my life. He not only changed the situation, but He changed my mind and my heart and is leading me on a new path with a new purpose. In 2015, I got sober. Unable to find a recovery community in Chatham, I moved and started volunteering as a peer support worker at South Shore Health Center in Leamington. With great mentoring, I eventually became a peer facilitator and sat on the board of directors. I trained and became a smart recovery host and held weekly meetings there. I then decided to go back to school for addictions through McMaster University and was hired as the addictions counselor and board member at Leamington Lodge, a long-term care home for mental health and addictions. I also regularly attended board meetings in Chatham with Erie St. Clair Lynn, where we had many discussions about roadblocks for people who struggled with addiction. Many of the roadblocks we discussed were things like bed space and wait times. Over the past year, Journeys has built exceptional relationships and supports within the Christian and recovery community here in Chatham, all who share a common interest in having this home rezoned and see the need for such a place within the community. We have partnered with many churches and organizations who have come here tonight to show their support, including Immediate Neighbors, CKHA, Withdrawal Management, CMHA, the RAM Clinic, as well as multiple church communities from different denominations. All of us are here because we have seen firsthand the amount of men in our community who are hurting, lost, and broken. They are desperately searching for support and healing to restore their lives. You can't walk down the streets anymore of downtown Chatham without seeing the devastation addiction has brought to so many people in this community. We are seeing people dying from this disease, and we need to offer a real solution to a very real and serious problem, a problem that is affecting our community at every level. We are giving these men a safe, sober, and controlled environment where they can focus on reinventing their lives with a God-inspired ending. We are asking council to approve this zoning request, as it is not only proactive for the community, decreasing death tolls, decreasing crime rates, and most importantly, returning these men to their families, sons to mothers and fathers to sons and daughters. Even on a small-scale operation like Journeys, it is a step in the right direction for our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And the last speaker is Zoe Mendler.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Zoe Menler. I am the Board President and Intake Coordinator of Journey's Recovery Home. Journey's Recovery Home came to be because of a dream to address the growing concern of addiction of drug and alcohol in the Chatham-Kent community. Growing up, I was blessed with two amazing women in my life, my mother and my grandmother, who both shared this dream to bring healing and hope to the hopeless. I wasn't born and raised in Chatham. I grew up in Windsor, where through my family's work, I got to witness firsthand the devastation and heartbreak of addiction and the impact it had on their loved ones and the community around them. On the flip side of this, I got to witness life breathe back into these individuals, the restoration of families, the joy, forgiveness, and freedom they received when they were given the proper love, help, support, and tools to heal through my family's rehabilitation facility. This sparked a fire inside me to join my family as a third generation to step into this field. So I decided to enter school to become a mental health and addiction worker, where I have since received my diploma. Soon after, I met my fiance Matthew, our program coordinator, who shared a similar dream. Matthew was born and raised in Chatham, where he struggled with addiction growing up, but unlike Windsor, he shared that there were very few resources and no rehabs available here. He had worked in the field being an addiction counselor in Leamington, but shared that his dream was to go back and give back to his home community. We decided then and there that if we were going to open a recovery home, Chatham was the place to be. We moved back to Chatham to pursue this dream together. We shared our idea with Matthew's family. They were supportive and jumped right on board. As a family, Journey's Recovery Home was born. The men in our community, until now, have been forced to seek in-house rehabilitation outside of Chatham, in many cases leaving their family, children, and lives behind, most times having to wait 6 to 8 weeks for a bed to become available. Journey's Recovery Home offers transitional housing to those who might otherwise return to the use of drugs and alcohol during this period. A lot of these men come from low-income homes and are unable to have regular visitation with their family when in rehab outside of Chatham due to transportation and money issues, causing further division in families and lowering their level of support and success when returning home. Recovery is a community. When these men return to Chatham from an in-house program, they have very little support for their sobriety, they have no accountability or people to turn to in times of struggle and temptation, and we want to bridge that gap. As a Christ-centered home, Journey offers a safe, sober living environment. We believe that lives can be saved by offering a spiritual-based approach to sobriety. Our board of directors came together to come up with the base for our program, as well as get our paperwork in order, which included a website, intake applications, medical forms, staff policies and procedures, emergency protocols, confidentiality agreements, rental agreements, a 15-page resident handbook that covers our rules, regulations, disciplinary action, and more. With our foundation for Journey's Recovery Home set, our next order of business was an actual home. We took all these things into consideration when looking at the location for Journey's and the support needed for these men to produce lasting sobriety, and 20 Joseph Street is a perfect location. It is centered around the hospital, withdrawal management, the RAM Clinic, which provides counseling and outside resources, Blue Water Methadone Clinic, AA meetings, churches, public transportation, pharmacies, and so much more, something that a rural location would not provide and is absolutely imperative to these men's recovery. We have done everything we can to ensure not only the safety of the residents in the home, but the neighbors alike, and we respectfully ask that you recognize the need for this home and its location and grant us the zone change to fill a much-needed gap in this community and the care for these men. Thank you for your time.
Administration, do you have any comments based on any of the discussion that's occurred?
No further comments, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Crew and Councillor B. McGregor, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved.
So seconded.
Any further questions? Seeing Councillor Scotchy?
Just one quick comment, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to say thank you to the people who spoke and to people who just took time out of their day that maybe have been affected or are being affected, coming by and making their time to make us understand how important this is. And I just wanted to say thank you. So.
I just want to add one quick comment. I'm really inspired. So thank you for everybody for what you're doing, and it warms my heart hearing the last 15, 20 minutes. So thank you. But with that, all in favor, please raise your hand.
Councillor Harrigan?
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone.
And the final planning application, F, zoning bylaw amendment, Municipality of Chatham-Kent, 175 Bloomfield Road and 100 Irwin Street, Community of Chatham City. No conflict of interest and no deputations were received.
Is there anyone present other than the applicant or the agent with an interest in the application? If so, please indicate by raising your hand. Seeing none, Councillor Allen and Councillor Story, can I get you to move this, please?
Happy to move it.
Happy to second.
And going for the vote, Councillor Harrigan?
Please raise your hand if you're in favor. Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. So we have one deputation for a Zoom call, but I do not see that deputation on the call, so we'll move on to the people in the room. We have 3 deputations this evening on item 16A, short-term dwelling rental options. We have Jeff Vidler, Sharon Paff, and Sue Robert. So we'll start with Jeff to come forward, and we'll have Sharon and Sue on deck, please. Same rules as before. There are a 5-minute timer on the screen. And feel free to start, Mr. Vidler.
Thank you. Your Worship, Councillors, thank you for allowing myself to speak to you on the short-term rentals. I am Jeff Vidler, and I am from Erie. I grew up there, I lived there, I moved on for about 25 years, and then I came back home. First thing I like to state is that I do not really have a problem with short-term rentals, but I do believe there needs to be control and must be limited. As I've read your report from administration on the survey report and their reports, I feel that the municipality will opt for the do-nothing approach. That's just my general feeling. I feel that this is not the best approach to take. The survey conducted, the responses made, and other reports can be misleading in that only 144 responses are made. How can you determine the option to do on such a low number of responses? And I know the survey is just one part of it. Most I know would sooner complain on social media or to their friends than lodge a complaint to the municipality, as they feel nothing will be done in any event. And this includes surveys, which they cannot be bothered to do, as they feel, again, it's just the status quo remain. In Ward 2, for example, there are 72 short-term rentals that the municipality knows of. Taking this into account in the report, I'm figuring that more than half of those are in Erie. We do not have a landmass to expand on. Very few vacant lots to build on. When you look at Erie and going by the census of 2021, Erie had a population of 363. Total private dwellings were 318. Private dwellings occupied usual residents were 187, which means that they're usually absent until May 21st or later. When one thinks of the fabric of a community, considering that a lot of homes in Erie are already some residents, and allowing more short-term rentals will leave our community during the off-season and throughout the year with a decline of our population, even more. And we'll lose more of our identity as a community. Adding or allowing more STRs into our community will eradicate the community even more. What does this do to the fabric of the community during the off-peak tourist season? And how it affects the small businesses of that community and the residents looking out for each other, the sense of belonging to the community, and we do look after each other. We do have a crisis here in Canada with housing and permanent residence, and Chatham-Kent is no different. Houses that are rented short-term take away from permanent homes for families. What is the occupancy allowed in short-term rentals? I've seen up to 10, 12, 16 people. Are they up to standards for allowing more than 10 or more with regards to the septic systems, the fire codes for following occupancy in that building? Are short-term rentals any different than tourist camps? As tourist camps come under a different bylaw, and when it comes to licensing, public health, fire codes, septic system, of course, taxes. Why is that if they're renting tourist camps on a short-term basis? Any correlation between the two, or has it been asked? I consider them kind of the same because they are kind of short-term. I know that the Chatham relies on the tourist trade here in Erie. We have done that for over 140 years. Long before we became a village, and then part of Chatham-Kent. We are proud to share our history of our village, as most people know I do, that people do not know. We have a plaque in our community showcasing some of our communities, and more will come, and that will be done on May 26th. But we must think of a community when it's not tourist season, and how that affects the community and the sense of belonging than what we have here. Sooner or later, we could just become a short-term community with no identity, no sense of belonging, if more homes are allowed to become short-term rentals. I have a few recommendations that I have is that no further short-term rentals be permitted in Erie. We need more permanent homes versus the short-term rentals. Must really look closely at the different communities and not just by the wards. We need to know how many we actually have. Must find out who owns these so that actions can be dealt with complaints. Enforcing the parking bylaws, police must ticket patrol when patrolling, when signs are designated as no parking, more patrols at night when most of the incidents do happen. Action against noise complaints in a timely manner, and we must have some type of regulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vidler. On deck is, next up is Sharon Paff. On deck is Sue Robert.
Honorable Mayor and Council, I am Sharon Paff, the Chair of Erie Community Association, or ECA, and I'm speaking on behalf of ECA on the topic of short-term rentals, or STRs. Erie launched a strategic planning process with the community in 2021 and 23. The endorsed vision statement is that Erie is a natural beauty that is welcoming, safe, innovative, resilient, and an environmentally sustainable community. During our workshops and electronic surveys where we asked property owners and residents for their feedback into the strategic plan, we heard major concerns regarding the increasing number of SDRs in our community, which are causing a negative impact on their quality of life and an erosion on the social fabric of our community. We heard from our residents that homes zoned as residential are being rented out like commercial hotels to unruly crowds of people who come with numerous vehicles and limited access to parking spaces. The current direction to deal with this situation is to notify police for disturbances and parking infractions. But I question the efficient use of our limited police resources when prevention of these problems through a bylaw may be a better approach. Many residents hesitate notifying police due to a fear of further escalation of conflicts with the renters and owners. The CK report identifies a very small number of SDR complaints, even though there are no specific police tracking of SDR incidents. This calls into question the value of the police reports as an indicator of the severity of the issue versus the value of the actual voiced concerns of our Erie residents. The absentee landlords are purchasing homes in the village to convert to SDRs for profit, with no concern about the well-being of the community. According to federal reports, this has impacted on housing supply and increased the value of residential property. The cost of property in Erie has escalated in recent years, but regardless of the listed price, residential property has quickly sold to investors and then been converted to rental property. I hear arguments that short-term renters invest in local economy, but I also see a population in Erie that's dwindling, and as a result, there are no permanent residents here in these homes investing and driving the local economy year-round. The report identifies there is unknown impact of STRs on long-term housing availability, but for 10 months of the year, we see growing numbers of homes unoccupied. Safety is another concern since there are no standards in place for ensuring compliance with fire and building codes. The tragedy of an illegal STR building in Montreal demonstrates the need for safety standards. But I am concerned that the cost in option 5 exceed other municipalities where it is a one-time inspection to obtain your license, not annually. An additional safety concern is the growing reports of vandalism and break-and-enters, with the decreasing presence of neighbors watching out for neighbors. The report identifies options and significant challenges regarding identifying, tracking, and managing STRs. Most municipalities have made the decision to successfully implement some type of bylaw to deal with the community's concerns. The bylaws usually include an annual fee up to $1,000 and one-time inspection fee of $500 to cover the administrative costs such as bylaw officers, fire and building code inspections, 24/7 hotline for reporting. There may be a demerit point or reporting system which prompts fines up to $500 or even revoking of licenses. The bylaw may include a restriction on the number of people, vehicles at each property, or even a cap on the total number of STRs per community. We have excellent accommodation providers in Erio who've had to comply with landlord and tenant board and other regulations, so it's only fair that there's an even playing field for all. The priority in Chatham-Kent strategic plan are economic development and growing our community. This report focuses on the priority of economic development with no attention to the issue of the erosion of our community. Options 1 to 4 are not going to achieve any improvements. Option 5 costs need to be reevaluated. Provincial legislation is not going to support our objectives. We need a local solution.
That's time. Thank you. Council did receive your email, though. And the final speaker on this report is Sue Robert, and we do have our Zoom caller on the line for our next one.
Alrighty. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak on this matter tonight. My name is Sue Robert, and I'm a generational resident of Erio. I have read with interest the report regarding short-term rentals, and although thorough, it does miss some of the finer points. First off, I'd like to speak to the sense of community that Erio has. This is a community that supports each other. The village has a proud past, and we love nothing more than sharing our history. The generations of families that have called this village home and the generations of cottagers that continue to call Erio home for 4 to 6 months a year is nothing short of amazing. I was one of the lucky ones that stayed, had a career that allowed me to travel the world, selling ag products that were produced right here at home. Regarding the STRs, I do see both sides of the issue. On one hand, we're a tourist village. On the other hand, this is our home. And we wish that all people that visited our home would treat it as our home. I see much in the report that our bylaws cover this, or police matter covers that. Such statements, they're great, but they're words. Most of the occurrences occur on the overnight hours, when bylaw officers are not available, and most residents don't wish to bother police what would they consider to be nuisance calls. The majority of the complaints that I see and hear are either on social media or residents that are verbally complaining to their neighbors and friends or to the directors of the ECA. We have stressed putting the complaints on the municipal website, but most people feel that's too little too late. I also note in the report that consultation on the report was of an in-house variety. There was no consultation with any motel business owners on the impact of short-term rentals on their business. Why not? I can understand tourism's point that there is a lack of accommodations in CK and STRs being a viable option. But at what point does a community as small as Erio, does the village lose a sense of being a community? What Jeff already mentioned about the shortage of land, so I won't really go over that anymore. But there is a housing crisis, and short-term rentals does take away from that availability. I had a boss one time that told me, don't come to me with your problems, come to me with your solutions. So I'm going to offer you some of my solutions. Spend the $13,000 to hire a third-party vendor to identify the STRs and monitor them for a year. Publish the results of this on your website without naming any names. Identify ways of implementing a moratorium on additional STRs while grandfathering in existing STRs so you don't get into more legal problems. Write to the provincial government, as other communities have done, and request a bylaw that everyone can follow on STRs. Put more emphasis and effort into how bylaws can and will be enforced, especially for nighttime complaints. If the police are busy with an active investigation, a noise complaint's going to go to the bottom of the list. Put more emphasis on late night and early morning police patrols. Put your STR fact sheet in with the tax bills and possibly Integris billings. Have them available at the library in Erio. Our volunteers will gladly hand them out. In smaller communities such as Erio, Shrewsbury, Erie Shores Drive, and Erie Beach, find a way to encourage more home sales as full-time residential. Be proactive and not reactive. Once the feeling that neighbors look out for neighbors is gone, it's going to be really hard to get it back, which will only result in more crime in CK. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last deputation is on the Zoom call. Item 14D, Chatham-Kent Museums Advisory Committee minutes from its meeting held on September 26, 2023. We have Marley Robinson. Marley, please go ahead. Marley, are you there? It seems like she may have lost connection. Marley, are you there? Okay, it ended up cutting out just your last 30 seconds ago. No, I can hear you now. Go ahead and go again. You just might have had a glitch in your connection. Yes, yes, we did hear that. No worries. Thank you, Marley. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. The following reports have been pulled for the consent agenda, and they are item 14D, the Chatham-Kent Municipal Museums Advisory Committee minutes from its meeting on September 26 has been pulled by Councillor Wright. Item 15A, the award RFP R24-211 for council composition and ward boundary review has been pulled by Councillor Sakachi, Councillor Jubinville, Councillor Finn, and Councillor Doyle. Item 15B, the tender award contract T24-186, Barline Regional Park Phase 1 has been pulled by Councillor Story, Councillor Jubinville, and Councillor Finn. Item 16A, short-term dwelling rental options, has been pulled by Councillor Sakachi. Item 16B, contractual enforcement officers appointment bylaw, has been pulled due to the conflict of interest by Councillor McGrail. Item 17A, open book, there's a demonstration from staff, Chris Heaton, our budget analyst. Item 17D, cooperative purchase end user computing devices and services, pulled by Councillor Jubinville. And the final report, item 21A, council chamber security measures, pulled by Councillor Bondi, Councillor Doyle, Councillor Jubinville, and Councillor Wright. Therefore, the remaining reports will be voted on in one motion on the consent agenda, and they are items 14A, B, C, E, F, 15C, 17B, C, 18A, 19A, 20A and B, and 21B, C, and D.
Councillor Hall and Councillor Harrigan, can I get you to move this, please?
So moved.
Any questions? All in favor, please raise your hand.
Councillor Harrigan?
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item 14, council meeting and committee of council meeting minutes.
Chatham-Kent Municipal Museums Advisory Committee minutes from its meeting held on September 26, 2023.
Councillor Wright and Councillor Sakachi, can I put you on the floor, please?
I'll move that.
Happy to put it on the floor, Your Worship.
Councillor Wright, you had some questions.
That's on the mark. Okay. Is Stephanie here? Thank you anyways. There was, some of the items here that were taken out of service here, de-sessioning them. Three of them were, indigenous artifacts. And I had made a comment at the meeting that they'd be, sent back to their band, which was the Cree in Saskatchewan. There was a carriage bag, a coat, and gloves. They should be returned back to the proper places instead of being sold or whatever. That was one of my concerns. And the other one was Marley there had spoke up pretty good on what was going on with the museum about the past 4 times we put it on the floor to do the repairs, and it hasn't been done, but we're hoping to get it moved forward this year because of the celebration next year is going on in Ridgetown. So the museum's getting pretty tough looking when you drive by it with the peeling paint and everything else. So that was my 2 concerns anyways.
Edward, did you want to make any comments to that?
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. And the simple answer is the repairs will be made this year.
Yeah. Thank you. And I don't know who will take care of getting the artifacts back to the right people, but.
Yeah, Your Worship, I'll follow up with Audrey Ansel and see if she can see about getting those back.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone in favor of the minutes, please put up your hand.
Councillor Harrigan?
Anyone opposed? Minutes carry. Item 15, tender awards.
15A, award RFP R24-211 for council composition and ward boundary review.
Councillor Jubinville and Councillor Sakachi, going to get you to move or put this on the floor, please.
I so move.
No, Mayor Kenneth, I will not put it on the floor.
Okay, Councillor Finn.
Happy to get it put on the floor.
Okay, Councillor Jubinville.
I am obviously in favor of this because I moved the motion forward, but I'm just struggling with the contract being awarded to Strategy Corps due to the fact that our previous integrity commissioner is a senior advisor with the company and with whom I have an active court case against. At Strategy Corps, she specializes in municipal matters and planning, so she very well could have a large influence in the facilitation of this matter, which I consider to be a conflict. With speaking to administration, I realize the purchasing bylaw binds us to enter into contract with Strategy Corps, but I'm just wondering how we can address what I see as a conflict. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I respond? Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jimaville. We had the opportunity to speak with the principals at Strategy Corps today, and they confirmed for us that they would be able to reallocate resources as requested.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for looking into that.
Councillor Finn is second, or is there anything you want to add?
Not to that portion, no.
Okay, Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to ask a couple quick questions to our clerk. Madam Clerk, I see that there's around a $70,000 cost associated with this. How many times, I know that you've been extremely helpful of bringing it back and kind of discussing how many times that we've revisited this item. Do you have an estimated total roughly what the municipality has already spent in trying to make any changes or support any recommendations?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did go back today to look at previous expenses that we've done both times that we've had a consultant come in. So the one time we had the consultant, it was approximately $125,000, and we had a facilitator earlier than that, and it was approximately $60,000.
Was there any staff costs associated with that, like in regards to additional staffing that was put in place as well?
So at the one point, we did have a 9-month FTE, but it was a job creation, so it wasn't fully funded by the municipality. And they came in and worked on some boundary changes and subdivision changes at that time.
Thank you. Can you just for my recollection, can you just tell me how those changes went?
So the two reports, obviously Council's gotten a copy of all of the reports from 2006 and 2010. Any of the recommendations that had come forward regarding ward boundary changes were not implemented, so we are still on the ward boundaries that were done at amalgamation.
And where's all the reports that we, besides the easy access that you've sent us through email, where would all those reports now be, that all the work that's been done?
So all of those reports are included in the minutes of those meetings. If anybody wanted them, we do have them available for quick access.
Have they been useful at all in the past?
For these types of things, when the issue comes up again, we happily provide them. I do know that the one report had come back several times. There were several recommendations to it, and we created I'm not going to have the right name of it, but we created a community group that looked at all of those and brought that information back to council. And some of those recommendations might have been implemented, but nothing with regards to composition or ward boundaries.
Yeah, thank you. And your information was extremely helpful in regards to the task forces that were created, the multiple consultants, as well as the staff members that were allocated. So would it be a fair assumption to say that if let's say we go through this exercise, and there's recommendations that come forward, is there any cost estimate that what it's going to cost the municipality? Because I can assure you that if you're having to change your stuff from the clerk's office, that there would be a large cost associated with that. As well as I do have a quick question for Ms. Hoffman as well.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of difficult at this time to predict what the costs might be. The consultant would come forward with different recommendations. If there were changes that were implemented by this council, we would have to make those changes in time for the election, and that would be a lot of clerk's time, staff time, rearranging those ward boundaries, et cetera, et cetera. But with the help of the consultant and what they put forward, some of that work may be done. But it's difficult to anticipate what costs would be, whether it's a reduction of the number of councillors and what that looks like, and with the ward boundary review.
Okay, so essentially we'd just be putting this $70,000 into the 250 almost thousand that we've put in to get to the potential results of talking about maybe switching things again. Is that correct?
So if council does pass this evening, this does add to more, and there's no guarantee that council will go with the decision, but that's entirely council's decision.
Perfect, thank you. And just a quick question to Ms. Hoffman. I know, Kathy, we spoke briefly, so I'm not going to ask you something that's going to put you on the spot, but the one quick question I did have is because we are providing them with premeditative direction of what to find in regards to looking at a reduction, I would be more supportive if it said looking at it openly, not looking at it just as a reduction. But just from the compensation piece from the committee standpoint, would this be something that you would actively look at once the recommendations come by, and then we were able to make a data-driven decision based on the ongoing costs that would cost the municipality as well? Like, how would this look if this report comes back and says, okay, we have to reduce to 12 councillors, here's the wards, what they're going to be. Would you then be meeting with the committee of council to discuss the compensation pieces, as well as if that's going to be a threshold between full-time, part-time? How would that look for us in here?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So maybe a couple of ways to respond to that one, Councillor Sakachi. So there would, at a point in time in the process, be an analysis done to come back to council with recommendations likely from the council compensation committee that would talk about what the costs would be associated with a revised constitution of council. It's obviously the most practical once there are particulars. How many council members, how many committees of council does one are you expecting to have, et cetera, et cetera. So until the most amount of information is available, it's tricky for the council compensation committee to be able to provide, to go out and do the data-driven work and check that out. But once that's in hand, yes, that would be a step so that council would know what the costs are associated with that.
Yeah, and the only reason why I'm asking that question is that we're not just approving $70,000 today. We'd be approving, if this moves forward, a lot of other money that potentially would be spent. So hopefully this, nothing against Strategy Corp as an organization or as a company, but I really feel this would extremely affect the rural community, and I won't be supporting the recommendations. And just wanted to ask those questions, so I thank you for your time.
Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I agree with Councillor Sakachi that we put a lot of money into this. Where we probably disagree is I think we should have made these changes 12 years ago. There's too many councillors. Like, you look at communities our size, and they're not even close to the amount of councillors that we have. And that was because Dr. Wayboom, I think, back in amalgamation, the municipality, well, then the communities didn't negotiate with the province concerning amalgamation, so they did it for us. So that's how we've ended up in this mess. But like, it's certainly time to reduce the size of council, because number one, we'd all get home a little earlier, but you know, there's too many of us, and it's geographically, there's the ward system as it currently stands is not representative of the population. So the division of councillors to representation is not terribly fair, and we amalgamated 25 years ago. A lot of changes have been made in those 25 years, and for instance, as a Ward 6 councillor, anybody that lives south of Indian Creek by the links of Kent, they're in South Kent. Now, if you go with the notion of there's a term I'm looking for. Communities of interest. Thank you very much, Brock. Those people, I'm sure, feel that they live in the city of Chatham, because they do. There's just a boundary that doesn't allow for that. But if you ask people in St. Clair Estates, you know, where do you live? I think they're going to say Chatham. I'm pretty sure. Linwood. So what city do you live in? I'm sure when they go away to other communities, they'll say, oh, I come from Chatham. But they don't. They come from Chatham-Kent, but the ward system puts them in a ward that they shouldn't be in. So this should be done. A reduction of council certainly should be done. And why wouldn't we readdress it? And again, you know, it's up to us. Like, we can take the recommendations and kill them and not take them. And I've been through this at least twice, maybe 3 times. And it seems that, you know, there's well, as Councillor Sakachi sort of alluded to, the rural councillors don't go for it because in all likelihood that would reduce their majority on council if there wasn't a reduction in council. And by, you know, 25 years later, hopefully we're getting over that split, right? And I think we should just do what's the right thing for local governance, is to reduce the size of council, reevaluate where people live, their community of interest, and take a fresh look at it and not look so much as the rural-urban split. And I know we went through this when I was first elected, so that was like 14 years ago or something. And that was the big split, or the big division was, if there was a realignment of council representation, the rural vote would be, like the combined rural vote would lose its majority against the city of Chatham vote. Now, hopefully we're beyond that, and we're all in this together. And there's enough new councillors here. Most of you guys, some of you may not have been born when we were, well, you're probably born, but, well, me, so hopefully we're there. So I strongly support this, and I really hope we look at this with fresh eyes and decide it is time for a change. It's a positive change. Well, I can't say it's a positive change. I haven't seen the recommendations, obviously, but I hope we go into this not thinking like, oh, no chance. You know, let's look at it and let's use our heads and decide that this is the best thing for the municipality. And so I'm all for it, and I wish them luck, and I hope they come back with positive recommendations. Thank you, Mayor Canada.
Okay, Councillor Finn, followed by Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Sakachi took most of mine with regards to the cost. Through you to the clerk, who distinguishes the boundaries? Like, do we have to hire somebody out to look at the boundaries, or is that something that can be done internally?
So at this time, the motion that was brought forward by Councillor Jubinville and Council approved was that we go to a third-party consultant. So that would be the purpose of what we're approving now, and they would be looking at different options of where to put the boundaries.
But should this fail, is that something that could be done internally to avoid the extended cost?
So that would be a lot of the GIS. We could do it internally. We'd have to talk with IT and the GIS people and our planning people and all of that type of stuff.
Okay.
So that is an option.
Okay. I agree, the boundaries do need to be relooked at. I get calls from all over. There is no boundary with regards to a motion that's brought up when people call to discuss it. I've got family in every ward in this community, as does many others. So to say that I'm not, because I'm a Ward 6 councillor, I don't look at a motion with regards to the community as a whole and the best for the community. My problem comes when we are dictating that they find a decrease in the number of counselors. If they decide that we do have too many, I have no problem with that. But for them to not look at the possibility we may be under because of our size, our uniqueness. To compare us with any other community, I don't think it's right to say they have 12, we have more. We're the same size, we're the same number of population. We're not the same. Some are 2-tier, we're 1-tier. So I can't support the fact that we're dictating that they find a decrease. Like I said, I'm in favor of doing ward boundaries, but not this motion as a whole.
Councillor Anderson, followed by Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, I just have a quick comment. I don't think that our issue here is boundaries or the number of councillors. I think that the issue that historically has gone on around this table is with cohesiveness and making decisions proper for all of Chatham-Kent. And I think that it's been really hard to get certain things to come through, such as an arena in Chatham, because you can't get the number of votes from rural councillors to support that. Or whenever there's a budget, you know, it happens to come with cut to rural infrastructure. And like, I mean, I think that it's a cohesiveness issue that we have around here. I don't think that we've ever had a more diverse council, and I think that that comes with the number of councillors that we have. I'm proud of everyone that's around this table, and I think that we all bring something different, and I think that we also all bring a cohesiveness that maybe hasn't been here before, but unless we go through this and we continue moving on in the direction that we're going, which I see being a very positive direction, I don't think that spending this money at this time is a good idea.
Councillor B. McGregor, followed by Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to sort of back out and say, you know, this is a tender process, and it's based on a motion that we approved at council previously, and we had a pretty spirited debate around that and came to, you know, a conclusion as council that we thought there was some value in going forward on this. And the way I read that motion then and the way I read it now is we're looking for a third-party consultant funded by strategic reserves to conduct a review, and then there's two components to that review. I don't think it limits that review to 2 components, and I think based on the applicants to that tender, I think they would be doing a pretty fulsome review. So I think that we're going to see those options come back that we need to see. And I think it's important to think about the scale of money we're talking about here as well, that almost $70,000. You know, we pass budgets that are $420 million. We'll spend, you know, $1.8 billion over our 4 years on council, and we're talking about $70,000 to make sure that we feel that people in the community are represented in the spending of those funds. So I think that's really important to keep into context. And, you know, I agree with Councillor Bondi. This has been an ongoing issue. It's something that should have been done before. And even when we do this, it should be something that's done again. So this should happen with some regularity to make sure that people feel represented in the community. And you know, I know we're sort of veering into the old debate again. But the community has changed. Representation needs to change. And if we decide not to change anything, we at least owe it to the community to say, when they ask us, hey, when I live on Indian Creek Road, why am I not in Ward 6? Or, hey, why does South Kent have 3 councillors and North Kent has 2? Hey, why is the system the way it is? We bear some responsibility to say, well, we made a decision. So someone made that decision for us long ago. I was 13 years old when it happened. But we do have some responsibility to say, hey, that was some time ago. Here's the new information we have. Here's the process we went through. It was a public process. The third party was involved. It wasn't politicians picking voters. It was an opportunity for the community to be involved, for experts to be involved, to pick a system that's going to be representative of the community and work for the community. So I think we have a responsibility to move forward with this, no matter how you prejudge the results of this process. So I'm happy that it's coming back. I'm happy that we had a list of companies interested in this type of work, and very confident that we will see a process that's thorough and gives us the information we need to make a sound decision.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I did pose this question to Judy earlier, but I'm going to follow up a little bit more. There are, as I understand it, 54 council seats on 24 boards as part of our committee work, is there not?
That's correct.
How would we address that issue going forward if we decided to redraw the ward boundaries and the amount of people on council?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The quick answer is it would take some time to review. The terms of reference may have to be reviewed, so if there is, one rep per ward and the ward boundaries change, we'd have to relook at all of those terms of reference to see what the proper appointment of counselors are on those. And the right time to do that is right at election, right when these ward boundaries would be implemented.
Okay, so there's a measure of work that would be required by each committee, each board to deal with that. And if memory serves, there's a couple that we wouldn't be able to adjust, like the conservation authorities, correct?
It would have to be what the conservation authorities are looking for and who might be the best representative depending on what the ward boundaries would be.
Right, but what I mean is we can't reduce the number of counselors that make up those committees on the LTVCA and the St. Clair region.
Correct. I think there's some landfills too, yes.
Yes, and some landfills, quite right. That number of 54, that doesn't include like community groups, ad hoc committees, or sort of less formal associations, meetings that a lot of counselors attend, correct?
That's right. Those would just be the advisory committees or local boards that you're appointed to at the beginning of your term by council.
Right, or like the folks from ERIO as well. So will that be our job, or will that be up to this tender winner, Strategy Corp, to look at those committees?
I would suggest that would be administration's role. That would not be in their description of detail of what we gave them in the RFP.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, because I want people to understand that it's not just Monday nights that counselors deal with. And one thing's for sure, whenever I speak to a new counselor, invariably over 20 years, honestly, even when I was in the media, one of the first things they said was, I can't believe how much additional work there was. I wasn't ready for it. And when we reduce the size of council, because that's what this motion says, we are adding workload to whoever is left. So I'm really trying to understand what the objective is here. While I recognize that there are those in the community that believe council has become tumescent, clearly it's not about saving money, because we're not going to save any money. At best, we save a couple of dollars. I'd argue that that substantial cut to council, say to 12, would require a move to full-time. It can't be about ensuring diversity of voice and perspective. Removing people from the council circle will reduce the diversity of voice and perspective. So it can't be about improving representation. I recognize that the population has changed since 2021. How much is hard to say. I do know we're smaller still than we were in 2006. That's just the fact of the matter. We haven't seen the large growth that the province has, although I do admit that there are some interesting areas like South Kent, and I'm very happy to see Councillor Doyle on our council. It's the first time in a long time that Ward 2 has had someone from his area of Ward 2, and I think that's an amazing change that might be lost in the future. So my thought is this is actually about getting particular goals accomplished. I'm sure there are those in the public thinking if we could just get a couple like-minded individuals on council, we could really move our agenda forward, be it urban versus rural, progressive versus conservative. But it is a double-edged sword. Tax ratios is a good example. That could potentially change with a change of makeup in council. But I can also see a future where rural areas would have to rely solely on the benevolence of an urban majority to keep an arena or a service center open in Wheatley or Bothwell. And while I believe this council would, I can't say that for future councils. And when you go back and read the previous reports, you can honestly get a good sense of what's most likely to happen. Council gets halved. One position per ward outside Chatham. The South Kent seat moves into Chatham for a total of 4 positions in the city. Voting blocks would be far easier to form, protect, and consolidate power. The Fontana 8 were pretty well known in London a decade ago, and all it would take here is the CK6. I'm not saying that this mayor or any other mayor would act like Mr. Fontana did, but it is a possibility. And then you add that to the day in and day out grind, which is what I was alluding to with the committee groups. A single rural councillor would have to take on far more workload and grind, far harder than a Chatham councillor would, simply because there'd be 4 Chatham councillors to divide up that workload. Now, I recognize potentially we could go to a ward system in Chatham, but I think the point stays the same. A Chatham resident would have options as far as to who would represent them. Rural folks would not. Lord knows the disagreements I've had with some of the residents in my ward, the stuff of lawsuits. That said, without another counselor in our ward, like Councillor Sakachi, Councillor Doyle, entire swaths of the population would go without representation. There are people I won't deal with in Ward 2. And as long as I can protect my voting base, they could go a decade without representation when we cut the size of council. So that's what's going to come back. You can read it in the previous reports. And I'm actually kind of heartened to see Strategy Corps was the one that won it. I think they do great work. But this is not a road that we should be going down. That's my thoughts and my comments, because I've seen what comes back. And what comes back is a huge, well, mess. A huge mess that comes back because there's going to be 106,000 different opinions. I don't think the Toronto Maple Leafs are bad because they have too many players. I don't think cutting the size of the team would improve them. I think having the proper players does. And that's what we have at council now, the proper players. Thank you.
Councillor Jubenville, final comments. Oh, Councillor Story.
I apologize, Mr. Mayor. How do you follow a hockey analogy, this very heightened emotion hockey playoff season? I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the discussion. I came in here with an open mind to hear what everyone had to say, and I appreciate the different viewpoints on it. I do think that, generally speaking, for me, it's not necessarily about a judgment on who is or isn't, how we are doing our jobs as council. It's more from my perspective from a governance review, and that, generally speaking, public organizations like ours would review their governance structure on a regular basis. So perhaps, it's not for tonight, obviously, but perhaps at another time that is appropriate, we might consider scheduling this review, so we're not having to worry about the jockeying of perhaps political viewpoints or what have you. It just says, okay, every 5 years or at every election or at a set time, we do review it, and maybe don't put any parameters on it, but just to make sure that we are doing our due diligence as stewards of an organization, because most nonprofit boards that I have sat on or public organizations that I've been part of, we do that kind of governance review. So for me, that's how I am viewing this. So I will be supporting this motion. I think it is a reasonable expectation to do this review regularly. And I'm going to, again, keep an open mind going into it with the motion. And again, this doesn't necessarily obligate us when Strategy Corps comes back. We're under no obligation to follow their recommendations, but we don't know what wards will be reduced or not reduced, or will urban or rural areas lose representation or gain it, or will our wards just look different? I'm willing to hear what they have to say, and I'm going to keep an open mind going into that, and I look forward to that discussion at that time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Jubenville, final words, and then we'll put it to vote.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate everyone's input. There's a lot of hypotheticals being discussed around the horseshoe tonight, but all that we're doing is asking for a review. We're not making any decisions, so if it comes back and we don't like what they propose to us, we can say no. We're not making a commitment, we're exploring. I do think we owe it to the constituents in Chatham-Kent. I personally, in North Kent, there's 2 areas that are in what most would consider within the confines of Chatham proper, but they're actually considered North Kent. And I'm sure this exists in every ward. So I really feel, since this hasn't been addressed, since amalgamation, we owe it to our constituents to have this review to bring things up to date. I know there's a lot of talk about the rural versus urban, but keep in mind, I'm a rural councillor and I brought this forward. So I consider myself as a councillor to constituents of Chatham-Kent, not necessarily, yes, I am a Ward 4, but I also am a councillor to all of Chatham-Kent. And all of the issues are important to me, whether they're in Ward 2, Ward 4, Ward 6, they're all important. So I think this needs to happen. We're not asking for hundreds of opinions. We're asking, I think, for perhaps 2 or 3. The number 12 was eliminated. So there was no confinement of a number. It was just the word decrease. So decrease could mean 16 counselors. So it's pretty open-ended. So I don't think we're putting a lot of confinements on the original motion. And I hope that it's supported. And I think it's good. I think our constituents, I think we owe this to Chatham-Kent to have this done. It hasn't been done, and it needs to happen. So I hope it's supported tonight. Thank you.
So Madam Clerk, I'll pass over to you. I'm sensing that we need a roll call vote on this one, not hands in the air. So I'll go over to you for the vote.
Thank you. We'll go alphabetically. Councillor Allen? Yes. Councillor Anderson? No. Councillor Bondi?
Yes.
Councillor Sakachi?
No.
Councillor Crew? No. Councillor Doyle?
No.
Councillor Finn? No. Councillor Hall?
Yes.
Councillor Harrigan? Councillor Jubenville?
Yes.
Councillor McGrail?
No.
Councillor Brock McGregor?
Yes.
Councillor Story?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
No.
Councillor Wright?
No.
Mayor Caniff?
Yes.
Motion fails 8-8. So council, just to clarify, the direction from council was to go out to invite a third-party consultant. That has now been voted down. Therefore, council determined, or administration would assume that no further work be done on that. If any further work has to be done, it would be a new notice of motion. Moving on to 15B, tender award contract T24-186, Barline Regional Park Phase 1.
Councillor Story and Councillor Jubenville, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
Happy to move, Mr. Chair.
And so seconded?
Okay, Councillor Story, the floor is yours, followed by Councillor Jubenville, and then Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was happy to read this report. Thanks to Edward and his team for putting this together. I think this has a very exciting potential to be a strong attraction and amenity for all of Chatham-Kent, I think. So I just had a couple questions because I think some of this work was done, or at least the earlier discussion, perhaps a little before my time on council. So I had a few questions for tonight. To start off with, just to talk about the tennis dome quickly, again, with the very generous support of the Chapados family. It does mention supporting, on page 3 of the comments, we're talking about the tennis dome, and we do reference future amenities as well as the tennis dome. Do we have a sense right now of what those future amenities might be?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe I'll provide some general context for members of the public that are watching tonight and just describe what the regional park is. So back in May of 2023, there was the donation from St. Clair College, and the land was donated for recreational purposes, and council approved that donation. And then August of 2023, staff came back with a regional park development, and as part of that, we did bring a site plan which identified in generalities the proposed design of the park. Through that report, council did approve phase 1 of the park, which is a tennis dome, utilities, and a parking lot. And tonight, we're coming back to you with the implementation of that phase 1. At that time as well, council approved entering into agreement with the Tennis Clubs of Canada to build and operate that tennis dome, and that we would work on the development of the other segments of the park in future phases. So in terms of the councillor's question, the park does have the tennis dome, which we're dealing with here tonight, but has a number of other amenities, and they are identified in the appendix It does illustrate there that we have a washroom facility outside of the tennis dome. There will be 10 pickleball courts, 2 multi-use sports courts, playgrounds, grass area. It does identify a soccer field with a washroom facility as well, and a cricket pitch and a maintenance building. So that is the general vision at this time for this community regional park.
Great, I think that's helpful for the community to know that there will be a variety of amenities that will be enjoying there. Do we have a general estimate on timing for completion of the tennis dome? So basically, when can Councillor Bondi start playing tennis at this tennis dome? We know how hardcore he wants this one done.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask Rob Pollock to come up and answer that question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rob Pollock, Director for Parks, Fleet, and Facilities. To answer your question, we're hoping the tennis dome's ready for use by the end of October 2024. So we have our construction project, and then Tennis Clubs Canada is coming in to build the dome and the tennis courts. So working with them, hopefully by the end of October.
That's great. This year, that's exciting. Thank you. I know there's a Rob or an Edward question just to follow up. So the Tennis Canada is operating the dome. Does that mean that is the municipality providing funding for those operations at any point?
Just to clarify, the third-party operator is called Tennis Clubs of Canada.
Oh, okay,
so
thank you.
We got a grant from Tennis Canada, but the operator is Tennis Clubs of Canada.
Okay.
They will be operating the tennis dome, and they're going to be paying us an annual fee for the use of the land as well. We're going to be paying for stuff on the ground, such as snow removal, grass cutting, garbage pickup, that kind of stuff, for the grounds area of the park. But for the operation of the tennis dome, the Tennis Clubs of Canada will be doing that.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. 2 more infrastructure traffic questions. Like the 204 stall parking lot, is there a formula we use for general use of a place or a property that size? Is that we came to that number?
So we used a landscape architect to come up with the design, and based on the usage of the park and the recreation amenities, they came up with the amount of parking spaces that would be needed for the entire recreation amenities that include the tennis dome, the pickleball, the soccer field, the cricket pitch, and so on.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not sure. I mean, if you drive that area, it's quite a bit busier than it used to be as that side of town grows. I don't live too far from there myself, and I know especially on Barline, the Grand Ave West, McNaughton Ave West, and now Dale Drive, that is a area of some fairly high speeds. Are we doing, often in the 60-kilometer-an-hour zone, will we be looking at that area for, I don't know if it's a traffic impact study or a speed study, or will any of that infrastructure or speed concerns change once we because that'll likely be a very popular spot, so will we be looking at how that traffic can be directed safely into the site?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. As this site progresses, as it kind of grows out, we will see more people walking here, more people cycling here, more people driving here. So I do envision, as this site does fill out in terms of the other amenities, potentially have to look at either putting a traffic signal here, running some sidewalks to this location. So those are all things top of mind for staff as we look at this site. We'll keep monitoring the site itself in terms of traffic, and as those various improvements get triggered, we would be implementing them.
That is great news. And then just a few quick questions about community support and finances. If a community group like a service club or a corporation wanted to participate or support the creation and development of this site, is that something that we are encouraging? And if so, how would they reach out to us to let us know that they're interested in joining this initiative?
Yes, so they can reach out to our Parks, Recreation, Cemeteries Department, myself, Ian Clark, the manager, or even to our Chatham Parks team as well. So.
Okay, great. Sorry, Michael.
Yeah, they can reach out to myself as well.
Okay, that's great. I had a service club mention they were excited about this and had a few ideas that might be able to help support this.
Just yeah, we'll be reaching out, we'll be putting out some, have a bigger release on how people get involved. It's not just for this park, it'll be for all of Chatham-Kent. There's a lot of opportunities, so, but this will certainly be part of the opportunity to get involved.
Okay, that's great. Last but not least, do we have a sense yet of the total costs that we'll be incurring to build and develop the entire site, and where would this funding come from?
I think the treasurer would like to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in that last August meeting, council did allocate $2 million of Hydro One community benefit funds. And then in the 2024 to 2027 multi-year budget, in the capital budget, there was $5 million of capital new funding approved in the budget. So $1.5 million in 2024, but ongoing in 25, 6, and 7 to total $5 million. So there's currently $7 million of funding allocated to this project.
Okay, and then do you think, would that be enough, or we're anticipating community and corporate support to maybe top that up at this point?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're going right now. We're going back to the architect to go over the second phase and possibly a third phase of how we would implement it over the next couple of years. And once we get those back, we'll have estimates with those. One of the things when we went back in August, we said we'd go back out to the community groups and consult with them on the next phases. We got some feedback from them, and we're going to go back with the architect right now, get the updated additions and kind of concepts and estimates, and then we come back to council with those next phases.
Okay. And do we have a sense yet, Rob, about operating costs for the site? Or is that later in the process that you just mentioned?
So in the 2024 budget process, there is a line in there in the operating, and it was approximately $81,000, and that would cover the expenses for the park, from grass cutting to snow removal and garbage removal and that kind of stuff.
And that, like, annually, give or take? Like, that would be our ongoing operating cost, generally speaking?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then just for the Hydro One Community Benefit Fund, this was 10 million, correct? I'm just curious how much we have left in that right now. And very generous support from Hydro One for that arrangement, and I'm thrilled we have it. I'm just wondering where we stand with that right now.
Yeah, so in total, it was $1 million a year for 10 years, so 10 million, but there is an inflation component on that as well, where it's being raised each year based on what CPI is each year. So in total, over the 10 years, it'll be around 11 million or 11.5 million, depending on where inflation is over that 10-year period. Like I said, council is committed in that August report, 2 million to this Barline project. There's been a few other items. The council award programs where each of you have the 25,000 a year allotment. And the plan was to go over 8 years, but that'll be up to the next council. It does come up for each at budget time each year to reconfirm whether council wants to do it for the next year. But that would be $4.4 million over a 8-year period. And along with the 2 million for this park and some other approvals that have happened to date, we're at $6.8 million being committed by this council of that $10 or $11 million fund.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Jubenville, followed by Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councillor Story asked all of my questions plus. Thanks.
Councillor Finn, followed by Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Worship, through you to Robert. Just two questions I'd asked earlier, but unfortunately didn't get a reply back. I've had people ask the sports courts that are designated, are they going to be basketball only, or are there going to be accommodations for ball hockey to utilize them?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, like I said in a previous comment, it was just that we're going to go back right now. We were consulting. They could be basketball, but we see a lot of multi-use kind of courts. So it might be a combination, or we might have one or the other. But when we have those, we'll come back and we'll show what those would look like for decision making.
And the other one got asked late today. The multi-purpose soccer field, will they have removable goalposts so football can use them?
So yeah, that was one of the things that's came up. We've consulted with our soccer association, and it is one of their actual strategic priorities as a group. It's on their website. It's that they're looking into possibly having an indoor type facility. If we did have that, they would be removable nets. They wouldn't be concreted in, like other indoor facilities other people might have seen. So they would be multi-use sort of areas if we did that. Yeah.
Thank you. You answered everything else prior.
Councillor Doyle, followed by Councillor Sakatchi.
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I just want to say this is awesome. I'm excited for this to get going. I can't wait to play Blondie and some tennis. Get your racket ready.
Me neither.
So I guess this design is by far the best one I think we've had so far. So you guys are doing awesome. My only suggestion, and I know this is it would be phase 2 or phase 3, so we're not even close to there yet. But the indoor soccer facility, I would just wondered if we could potentially make that field 60 meters wide as opposed to 50 meters wide. Just covers more things, and if you were to potentially take out a couple of those trees on the one side of the path, you could extend it. So I would just like to put that as a recommendation going forward, kind of thing, if you could.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we can take that information back, and this initial drawing was to show what could kind of fit on that drawing. So, but yeah, we can take that information back and look at that.
Yeah, it looks awesome. It keeps getting better every time.
Councillor Sakatchi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to thank actually yourself and all the team members and community partners that put a lot of work into this. You'll be happy to know I don't have any suggestions for you guys to change anything. Just one quick question, though, just to Mr. Quinton, just because you were, when you're answering some of Councillor Story's questions, though, I just want to be, I'm extremely supportive, extremely excited of this project. I think it's going to be amazing for our entire community. But the money that's in that reserve isn't just identified for one specific project, correct? For this reserve, yes, but not for the Hydro One Community Fund. It's to be utilized for community recreation, basically, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's correct. That's the purpose of the fund, is for community recreation and culture items throughout Chatham-Kent. The total that I gave of the 6.8 million is what council's committed in total, but part of that's your ward funding programs and items that are spread throughout, and there's still this is over a 10-year period, so the next two councils will perhaps will have some opportunities on where the remainder of the money gets spent.
Yeah, and I thank you for that. I think this administration and Mayor Caniff's doing a great job at working with community partners to ensure that we address our kind of shortfall of recreational amenities in Chatham-Kent. Just want to make sure that we don't identify all our resources in one specific spot, although this is amazing that we do have some additional funds for other communities as well. And I just think this is a great project, and it's going to be a legacy project, and I think that everyone that worked on this project should be extremely proud seeing it come into fruition. So thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor.
I too just wanted to express how excited I am to see this go forward, and especially to see the inclusion on the site plan of the cricket pitch. Want to make sure we said that out loud a few times, because I know there's a lot of members in the community that are really excited to know that will be included. And just wanted to remark, it's probably the biggest investment in Ward 4 we've had in quite some time, and I think that's pretty remarkable. So I think it'll be interesting to see the breakdown of the Hydro One money, and I hope that Ward 6 sees some of that benefit as well. Thank you.
See, no other questions. I just want to add a couple quick things there. I know we've talked about this, but I mean, we look at partnerships, public-private partnerships. This is a huge example of that. Hydro One stepping up. We're getting all that money to contribute across Chatham-Kent. St. Clair College stepping up, donating the land. We have a Canadian organization donating $200,000 for the tennis dome. That's not the end of this. There's going to be a number of other people stepping up to support this, not just this, but projects across Chatham-Kent. So I'm super excited about this. I mean, when you look at what we're doing and spending very little actual tax dollars, this is a lot of sponsored things, creating really exciting facilities for Chatham-Kent. And that area right there just happens to be the population center, i.e., if everyone was to drive in Chatham-Kent to a location, basically the college is it. The college minimizes everyone's drive. If everyone in Chatham-Kent was to drive somewhere, that's it. So it's a great place to have it centered so that it's right in the heart of all the population areas, and super excited about this. So with that, I'm going to venture out. I'm just going to do show of hands. I'm going to go on a limb here, but anyways, yeah. Those in favor, please raise your hand.
Councillor Harrigan?
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Item 16, corporate services.
Short-term dwelling rental options.
It's an information report. Councillor Sakatchi, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just a couple quick questions to Ms. Havens. So Nancy, I think you did a fantastic job at the at the report. I know that it was discussed a lot. I know that there might be some areas where some people may feel that there was some maybe some added information would be useful. I know that in discussing with all the different municipalities, there's a lot of different ways that we can look at these types of things. One of the questions I did have was actually related in regards to the kind of the documentation or having a third party. Do you know what kind of term would be associated if we did decide to go that route? Let's say in the future, if this started to become habitually bad and we wanted to track, I see the cost, but is it like something we could do for like a yearly basis, or is this something that we would have to, for them to have a business case to do for 2 or 3 years?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Sakatchi. Entering with a third-party vendor to identify the properties is something that's usually on an annual basis because of the amount of work that's put into it to identify the properties, to match it up to our assessment, to our mapping. So you can enter into it for a year. They actually would like longer term, and there are other municipalities that have used it and entered into long-term contracts with them because the data goes old, quick.
And I know you can't make a synopsis about all the different conversations that you had with all the different municipalities. You referenced some of them in there. I'm sure that you spoke to a lot of staff members as well. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
What was the general overall conversation with the other? Is this something that's challenging for all municipalities to kind of, I'm not going to use the word police, but to try to, I guess, navigate through it? Like, have you seen habitual challenges by other municipalities that they're also struggling with some of these things?
There's definitely challenges, especially where municipalities don't put enough bodies in the administrative side and the bylaw enforcement side. So when that happens, they definitely can't keep up with the numbers of short-term rentals out on their property, and the program doesn't go well. There are other municipalities that have done well as well, but I think each municipality has to look at their own situation to tailor it to what's going on in their municipality because it's different across the province. There's no cookie cutter answer for everyone.
Thank you. One of the biggest questions I had, I really found very useful as well, is the attachment that you had with kind of like the layout of, the options and the potential repercussions and the costs. The costs were actually quite considerably more than I would have anticipated to see in some of the options. Is that because of our demographics and geography of how big we are in regards to staffing? Is that in regards to potentially different positions in fire to help navigate these things? Like, what's those additional costs associated with that? Why is it so high?
Are you talking about number 6 or number 5 or all options in general?
Just the options that had like the staff resources that were
okay.
Quite, I guess as just a blanket term, not one specifically, but just generalize why some of the costs were so high in the monitoring component.
Okay, to identify 200 and follow through with getting them licensed
is a lot of work. So you need the bodies in place to do that. So if council was to consider a licensing program, you're looking at, it'd take us a couple of years to get 200 short-term rentals licensed. And then you'd have to have a bylaw enforcement officer out there on the ground helping with that as well, because some of the short-term rentals might not be owned by people that live in our area. So there's all that follow-up and getting all that information in from them, depending on, what is a requirement of the bylaw itself. There's a lot of requirements that can be put into the bylaw, and the more requirements, the more time it takes to follow through with all that.
And then lastly, obviously, if we did decide, let's say this is something that we start receiving considerable amounts of feedback on again, as well as there is some more feedback from your department, basically we could just move forward with not the recommendation, but the option to look at the tracking the data, and that would just be like an inflationary cost increase. We would just go for tender, and then they would come back. Like, how many companies third-party companies could do this type of tracking?
I do believe there are several that can do it. However, I did find out from purchasing that depending on if there's another municipality that has already went out and did it, that we could piggyback on their RFP or quote if that municipality let us, and if the third-party vendor would let us as well.
Okay, that's helpful. So in the future, if we decide to do something like that, it's not a huge process. We've already went through like the, basically the public information, and that we could bring that forward and just have more public information about that specific maybe motion or recommendation, correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much for all the work and all the conversations we had on this. I know it was a while, but I do appreciate the work. Thank you.
Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Nancy, for the report. I guess the only thing I would be worried about is trying to do like a cookie cutter kind of approach to everywhere in Chatham-Kent, because Chatham-Kent's not the same. So a problem in one area might not be a problem in the other area. So I guess my only question is, not that I'm going to do anything right now, but just so we have knowledge going forward, is this something that we can break up based on like town or village or something within our municipality, or does this have to be a Chatham-Kent bylaw, or can we make a bylaw that just has a couple communities?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is something that we'd have to look in further, but administration will work with the legal department and look at that and see if there's an answer that we can get back to council if that comes up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, given those information, we'll move on to the next item.
16B, Contractual Enforcement Officers Appointment Bylaw.
Councillor Thompson and Councillor B. McGregor, can I each move this, please?
So moved.
So seconded.
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, hands up.
Councillor Harrigan?
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 17, Finance, Budget, Information, Technology, and Transformation.
17A, Open Book. We have a demonstration by Chris Heaton, who is our budget analyst, and I believe Steve Brown will give an introduction.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm joined tonight by Chris Heaton, Budget and Performance Analyst, who will be providing council with a demonstration on our newest online budgeting tool, Questica Open Book. This tool assists the municipality in continuing to be open and transparent with the residents of Chatham-Kent, while also providing valuable information on both our operating and our capital budgets. I'll now turn over to Chris, who will provide a brief overview of Open Book, which can be found on our municipal website.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay. Under CK Plan 2035, The municipality of Chatham-Kent has committed to a critical success factor of open, transparent, and effective governance. This was top of our mind during the selection of our new budgeting software, with its included transparency and data visualization tool, OpenBook. So what does OpenBook do? It enables us to share financial and other information in an open, visual, and user-friendly way. The Chatham-Kent OpenBook site can be found at chathamkent.openbook.questigood.com and is linked to from the municipal website, both from the home page and within the budget and finance section. You can find that by going to local government, budget and finance, and then it's here with the budget overview tool. This takes us through to the landing page for OpenBook. This page will evolve over time as we generate additional information to share with our residents. The page consists of a series of spotlight articles and visualizations used to share various budget and financial information with the reader. The banner at the top features some highlighted articles for ease of navigation. The first few spotlights are aimed at providing the user with information and learning about the budget process, in general terms, specifically about the multi-year budget, as well as linking to the latest budget book produced. The next spotlight shows the operating budgets. Under this spotlight, we have two budget explorers, one showing our budgeted expenses and the other showing the revenues. Each explorer can be toggled to show the current budget or historical figures back to 2021. The default view is a breakdown by department, and users can drill down into each area to get more detailed breakdowns by division, by manager level, and then finally, at that level, by expense type. The breadcrumb trail lets you know where you are and enables you to jump back to any level. The initial breakdown can be flipped to start with the expense type, so you can see the overall municipal operating budget by expense category. As you can see here, the biggest category of the expense budget is employee related. The next being transfers to reserve, which is made up of our asset management infrastructure budget. From here, you can drill down to see which departments and divisions make up that area of the budget. At each level of the breakdown, you can toggle between the bar chart showing the dollar amounts, a pie chart showing the percentage makeup, a summary table of the information, or a history showing the trend of that particular data point. The next spotlight shows the capital budget. Here we have a similar explorer showing the current year budgeted capital spend broken down by asset type and then by project. And finally, we have a capital project spotlight. The Capital Project Explorer displays all our upcoming approved capital projects. The visualization opens with a map view and is filtered by projects by asset type, so we can see bridges, roads, parks, etc. At this point, you can pick a project from the list on the left, or you can zoom into a specific area of the map to find a project of interest. Clicking through to that project gives you some more information about it, including a description of the asset, the work required, the remaining budget to complete the work, the total projected cost, and any money spent to date. There's also a breakdown of the years that the budget will be spent, giving you an indication of when that project is to be completed, as well as a breakdown of the funding sources used to fund this project. It is worth mentioning at this point there is a difference between the mapping of the individual projects like bridges, where we have each one mapped out for the next 4 years, and combined contracts like road resurfacing, where although we have the budget for the next 4 years, the individual road segments are not known and therefore not mapped until the year's report has gone to council. All the information displayed here is linked directly to our budgeting software and gets refreshed regularly, so it will always be maintained and kept up to date. And with that quick introduction to OpenBook, are there any questions?
Councillor Story?
Just want to say, this is amazing. Like, this is really helpful. Thank you so much to the team. More of a, I guess, a general interest question. How did you get all this information onto the website like this? My mind is blown right now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a lot of the information is entered in Sequestica. The operating budgets are in there as part of our operating budget. All the projects for the capital side are entered by the IS team as part of the budget process. And as they are approved and get put forward, they'll come through directly to OpenBook as part of the upload.
So it's the data we already have. It's just packaged a little differently and through this software and available to everybody. Well, I
That's great.
give the team full credit. This is going to be a hugely useful tool for transparency and information for, I think, both us and our citizens. So thank you very much for the presentation.
And thank you for shortening council meetings an average of 15 minutes with all this information. So, oh, fabulous tool. Thank you. Oh, Councillor B. McGregor?
Yeah, just wanted to thank you for the presentation. I think that's, after going through a number of municipal budgets now, this really helps with clarity, and I know we've had a lot of feedback from the public around how we can make some of this information more accessible. So really appreciate seeing this. Do you have any idea of how we might use this tool during the 4-year budget updates? So in between those longer budget years, we'll be able to update that those like variance articles we're talking about or new council directions, and use some of this technology to evaluate how they'll impact budget?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, we will be updating, as we say, it's an evolving process. We are planning to bring in some of the municipal performance. We're just kind of working through a few of the things with the software provider. So as that is in place, we'll be able to give you some updates on the variance, on how we're performing, both on financial performance as well as some of the KPIs that we got in the business plan.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to the next item.
17D, cooperative purchase end user computing devices and services.
Councillor Juvenville and Councillor Thompson, can I get you please on the floor, please?
I so move.
And I will second.
Councillor Juvenville, floor is yours.
Thank you. I just have a question, kind of, I guess it's related to this. So during the stay-at-home order and work-at-home order in 2020 and 2021, municipal staff were issued laptops and devices in order to work from home, but most of them or some of them have returned to work. But I've been informed that some of the municipal employees have not been requested to return their devices despite returning to working in-house. So I'm just curious, could we be using some of these devices that are still in people's houses? Or are we asking for them to be returning these devices? And so if we use these devices, it would offset the costs that you're proposing here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start off on this, and if any other EMP members want to have any other comments, that would be appreciated. But so yes, we very quickly had to roll out all the equipment that we could possibly get our hands on during the pandemic. It is inventoried, and there is over time we've now adopted more of a hybrid work from home processes. So now it depends on your role. So we've had a large shift in the equipment that we use. Where in some cases, give you an example in my area, accounts payable clerk would have had only a desktop computer because they were always in the office before. Now there's a rotation where there is some flexible work arrangements and that sometimes they're working from home. So we have on purpose, as the equipment has aged and needs to be refreshed, and as the price of laptops fell drastically over the last 5 or so years. Anyway, the costs have now been really negligible on whether we had a desktop or a laptop. And so we're making sure, based on the individual roles in our hybrid work from home policies, that we provide staff with the appropriate equipment based on their role and where they'll be. And so that may include laptops where appropriate, where they can take it home, and sometimes it's other equipment as well, depending on their role. We do have an inventory of what went out, and to our knowledge, there's nothing that we haven't asked to come back that hasn't. Now we could Dan, if there's anything else knowledge that you have on that, fine to comment. But that there's also as equipment ages, it becomes obsolete anyway, and so we do have a donation program where we work with Employment Social Services for obsolete equipment. Just turn out. Dan, was there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
Thanks, Gord. Mayor Caniff. In addition to what Gord has mentioned, when the devices were rolled out at the beginning of the pandemic, a lot of them were already life cycle devices, quite old in nature. The teams tracked those devices over the last 4 years, and as staff designations for working from home, such as hybrid workers, and those determinations were made, we have been actually life cycling those devices as well over the years. At present, any of the devices that were originally rolled out during the pandemic are pretty much gone by now.
Okay, thank you. It was just brought to my attention by some municipal employees, so I didn't know if they were forgotten about to be requested back, or if they're even outdated by now. I don't know that, so that's why I questioned it, and if they were worthy of, implementing back into this to save some money, so that's why I was questioning it. So, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Crew?
Just briefly, and I think Gord touched on it. We used to have a donation program. Do we still have that for not-for-profits, for equipment that's still good enough that most not-for-profits are happy to have those kind of things? How do they access that?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, absolutely. We work really closely with the Employment Social Services Group. They've helped us to establish a contract with Habitat for Humanity, Chatham-Kent, and they get the majority of our devices that we deem to be serviceable. They make sure that those devices are refurbished, made usable by reinstalling new software, new operating system, not municipal software, and those devices are given back out to the community. They have a qualifying process to make sure that they go into the intended recipient's hands, and that is something that we do annually. Yeah.
Seeing no other questions, all in favor?
Councillor Harrigan?
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 21, Infrastructure and Engineering Services.
21A, Council Chamber Security Measures.
Councillor Bondi and Councillor Doyle, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
So moved.
So seconded.
Okay, we've got 4 speakers here. So Councillor Bondi, followed by Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just a quick question. Was this requested by, nobody has to say any names, but by council, or is this like an administrative thing? Is this something that's happening at other council facilities across the province? Or, the reason I'm asking this is, as many of us will know, we sort of get beat up on this thing when it's like, oh, council's asking for these security measures and it's going to cost $30,000, and, there's a who do they think they are and all that. sort of stuff. So I'm just curious, is this, like it says in the report, this is a recommendation from administration, but can we just kind of clear that up that, council didn't, secretly ask for these new security measures, which I'm sure was not the case, but, I don't like to respond to all this nonsense that you see online, and a lot of it's legit, right? So I think the question should be answered of, why are we doing this? Because frankly, like I know we've had a little incident a couple weeks ago, some guy in a balaclava or something, but is there anything else that we're not aware of? Any sort of threat that I'm not aware of that is, or is this a province-wide practice?
Well, maybe I can confirm that council hasn't secretly asked us to do this, at least not council as a whole. But certainly in the last number of months, we have had councillors who have felt threatened in council chambers, and that's been shared with administration. The other thing, there's a certain level of this discussion that I don't think is appropriate to hold in open session, because I don't want to identify who those councillors were or that sort of thing. But I can tell you it is not at all unusual. In fact, it comes up at almost every meeting that I have with other CAOs. There's been a change in the environment in council chambers, not just council chambers, but municipal buildings right across the provinces, and I would say even the country. So as the report indicates, there's been a couple of incidents that have happened. That's known to us as administration, certainly known to you as councillors and to the public. All you have to do is read the papers all over the place. So I have an obligation, as does everyone on senior management, to make sure that everybody is safe. And so even if councillors weren't interested in it, there's something that I have an obligation to make sure that our staff are safe as well. So, but I do think I have that same obligation to each of you as councillors and to your families. And so that's why it's come forward, is because there have been threats and there have been situations where people have felt uncomfortable, and there have been other examples where other municipalities have taken steps far more than what we're even suggesting. I will say, I'll even go a step further, even though this report isn't specifically about security in the building. Many municipalities that you walk into have security in the building. Smaller municipalities than ours, and much smaller buildings than ours. And so this is somewhat of a change for Chatham-Kent, probably not something anyone really wanted to have to talk about, but we have to keep people safe. We want to make sure that people continue to run for council and continue to represent their community. And if we can't keep people safe, then that is at risk. So that's why it's here, but to be categorically clear, it's not because it was a secret ask from council. But I will say I hope the council supports it. I think in the grand scheme of things, I think it was Councillor McGregor who commented, this is a multi-million-dollar organization. And no, we don't want to, spend even a dime on something that isn't of any value. But in order to support the people that give their time and commitment to the community, I think it's important to at least consider this. If council goes in another direction, we'll respect that. But I would say that even from a staff perspective, we would probably change things around so that staff don't feel vulnerable.
Fair enough. Thank you very much.
Councillor Doyle, followed by Councillor Jumonville. Thank you, Mayor. Can I just split up items 1 and 2 to vote on separately from items 3 and 4? I guess just my reason for that, I wasn't here for a couple of meetings you're talking about, so I don't have the same viewpoint as others necessarily, but I can support the security guard being here, and the security guard should not let anybody in here that shouldn't be in here, but I can't support spending $30,000 to redo this room when we're about to move potentially within the next couple of years. That should just seem to me, when the chambers have been like this for so long, to spend that much money just for a couple of years doesn't make sense to me. So that's why I'd want them split up. Councillor Jumonville, followed by Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm echoing Councillor Doyle in relation to the security guards. I welcome the implementation of them, but I don't see the further need for other logistical changes within the council chambers. If the rules of council chambers are followed, that the clerk reads before every meeting and enforced by our security guards, I don't understand why we would need the extra measures implemented, knowing that council chambers could be moving down the road in a few years. So I'm quoting in the report, it says, what exactly are the limitations of security guards? It says security will be able to remove anyone of, who acts out against procedural bylaw. So does that mean they have the ability or the authority to physically remove them?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the purpose of the security guards really is to keep order.
Right.
And if someone was to become, to the point where we had to physically remove them, they would work with our police services to move them.
Okay, thank you. I'm just worried about the division, and I mean it, not literally, but figuratively, the division that it creates between council and our CK residents when we're enclosing ourselves within this chambers and putting them on the outside. It doesn't set a good image from my perspective. I'm not negating the feelings of any of the other counselors that may feel unsafe. I'm not saying that your feelings might not be worthy, but I won't be supporting I support the security guards, but I won't support the changes to the council chambers. Thank you.
Councillor Wright, followed by Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Was CK Police, was there any pricing from them?
Sorry, Councillor, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, was there any pricing from CK Police, like what it would cost to have an officer here compared to a security guard?
I would, through you, Mr. Mayor, I would say that the CK Police would be extremely higher than what we have here for the security guards.
But no prices come back? No.
No.
No. Okay, thank you.
But on an hourly basis, the fee for the security guards is significantly lower than the hourly rate for a police officer.
Just to add to that, Councillor Wright, that we would be pulling police from the street to come in here, so we thought, no, that's not something we want to be doing as well. Councillor Anderson, followed by Councillor McGrail.
Thank you, and through you. I think that I will support all of this. I don't think that it's necessarily due to us necessarily feeling unsafe at every single council meeting, but I will personally say it is a weird feeling to sit in this chair and have the public sitting behind you, and it's a bit distracting to have conversations happening back there, and depending on what is going on, it can be a little bit contentious, and to not know what's going on behind you and trying to remain focused on the meeting and what is happening and trying to do my job here, it is a little bit distracting. And I definitely didn't notice it last year because I was sitting where Councillor Pinsno was currently sitting. So I didn't have anyone behind me, but sitting here, yeah, I do feel like I've always been a person that was taught to be aware of my surroundings, and sitting within this council chamber, it's not that I don't want the public to be able to access me and have conversations. I just don't like not being able to know what's going on behind me when I'm trying to focus on what's happening in front of me. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. I hope as we move forward and as we look at new design for our new Civic Center and chambers, that the layout would take all of that into consideration, and definitely not separate anybody from being able to be within chambers, but maybe allow for everyone to do their jobs properly and still feel safe while doing it.
Kathy, you wanted to add something?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council, I'd also just like to add that a couple of comments have been made about the impacts that it is for council chambers, and I think Mr. Dubin made some comments as well about the impact for staff. And so I'd just like to suggest to you that part of the lens that you're looking at this through is through your own interest as a member of council. And I'd just like to inspire you to also think about the impact that this is on employees. You have a number of employees in this room on any given day, and I can tell you that many of us sit with our back to the public, whether we're sitting in these chairs or the ones over to the side. And while security cards form one role, it's our responsibility to be making recommendations that involve a series of interventions that try to maximize our ability to be safe, and security guards are not the only method. We really need to try to remove areas where people are going to be subjected to something that they don't otherwise have control over. So I can tell you that our staff very much want to see these kinds of changes made for their own safety. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor McGrail, followed by Councillor Hall.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Caniff. I will absolutely support this, in no doubt. I'm not sure who you were alluding to, but I have been subject to people coming up and in not nice manners in this council chamber. And I will come forward and say this. And, you know, it really shook me up. It did, for days, and for a while, it did. And I believe everybody owes the right to be able to sit in this horseshoe and make their decisions and feel good about their decisions and feel safe about their decisions. So, yeah, we do. And it's not because of our decisions we need this. It's because, you know, times have changed and now we need to react. Because these issues have come to this council already. Thank you.
Councillor Hall, followed by Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor McGrail just, you know, expressed it very eloquently, so I appreciate that. I just want to remind council, you know, you know, in front of all of our desks here, a few months ago, we approved our strategic plan, and one of the pillars here is to promote safety and well-being. And you know, oftentimes we make decisions that's for the whole community, but I think it's our responsibility, you know, to adhere to our strategic plan right here where we make these decisions right in the council chambers, which is to promote safety and well-being. I think Mr. Pollock outlined a lot of details. You know, we talked about some of the instances that have already happened here, you know, this term of council. The one a few weeks ago, definitely, you know, when you're getting escorted by the police down to your car after a council meeting, that's, you know, definitely makes you think about things a little bit. So, you know, and Mr. Pollock outlined a lot of other instances that have happened, you know, to some of our neighboring communities and other communities across Ontario and Canada. So, you know, even if we are moving to a new council chambers in a couple of years, you know, putting this investment into making this place safer now, it's well worth it. Thank you.
Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question and a comment. Mr. Soldo, will the reconfiguration change the ramps for folks with mobility issues? Will there be any change to that access to the building or the room?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. That was a key consideration to ensure that this location in this chambers is very accessible. So the ramp will stay at its current location. It will just involve putting some gates up to prevent entry into the inner chamber.
Okay, that's great to know. Thank you. I share the majority of the views we've heard so far. I do wish that we were not in a situation where we were discussing this, but I do feel that if there was ever a better example of better safe than sorry, this would be it. I do think this is a reasonable expense in terms of the scale of our overall budget, and if it improves the safety of staff, the public and council, I think it's absolutely worth it. I do always think it's worthwhile to raise the question about the future of this space, of course, in the context of this discussion. But whatever the future of this space is and this building, that is still likely some time away. So we would still be in this space meeting at council for potentially, 2, 3, 4 years, leaving us exposed if we don't take these, make these changes now. And I do admit, there have been multiple times this term, including our last meeting, because I interacted with that individual by myself in the hallway. And I have felt genuinely concerned for my safety in this building multiple times since this term has begun, in this space, in this chambers, and in the building in general. And by extension, I think if I am feeling this way, I know others are feeling this way, and not everyone is comfortable saying that publicly, because we do get feedback and pushback sometimes by sharing those personal experiences. I have also spoken, I'm glad Michael, or Mr. Dubin, that you mentioned that. You've spoken to other colleagues across the province, because I have as well, through some of the work that I'm fortunate enough to do. Some other communities, municipalities not far from here have in the past, in this term, suspended in-person meetings entirely and gone to virtual meetings for a period of time due to major security concerns of the safety of those in their council chambers. I've also spoken informally to councillors across the country through my work with FCM who have had security like and more of what we're discussing today for years, and we're quite frankly surprised that we didn't have any until a few weeks ago. I do respect that not everyone feels the same level of comfort in this room and in this building. It does depend on where you're sitting. I sat where Councillor Anderson sat for a little over a year. Depends on your sight lines, your physical abilities, your proximity to the exits, but also your personal experience and comfort level with disruption and threats. And I would just say that because you may not personally feel threatened or concerned when you come to work in this room, I can say that there are people that do. Out of respect for everyone's safety, I think this is a reasonable option. And do I wish it was different? Absolutely I do, but I'm not naive. And we do live in a challenging political climate right now. And to Mr. Dubin's assessment, I also think that even if everyone at council in this instance felt there was no need to do this, if staff felt that way, I think we would have to respect that. Everyone deserves a safe environment to do their work. In fact, I think that's protection by law to do that. So as a municipal councilor, as a municipal council, as municipal staff, and as the public, we deserve that same environment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Judy, how do you want to do the voting on this one?
I will do roll call, and we'll start with number 1 and 2 first, and that's with regards to the reconfiguration of the council chambers at a cost of $29,615. Councillor Allen.
Yes.
Councillor Anderson.
Yes.
Councillor Bondi.
No.
Councillor Sakachi.
Yes.
Councillor Crew.
Yes.
Councillor Doyle.
No.
Councillor Finn.
Yes.
Councillor Hall.
Yes.
Councillor Harrigan. Thank you. Councillor Jubinville.
No.
Councillor McGrail.
Yes.
Councillor B. McGregor.
No.
Absent. Councillor Story.
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Councillor Wright.
Yes.
And Mayor Caniff.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. Motion passes 12-4. And now we'll move on to items 3 and 4. We'll start at the bottom. Councillor Wright.
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Councillor Story.
Yes.
Absent. Councillor B. McGregor.
Yes.
Councillor McGrail.
Yes.
Councillor Jubinville.
Yes.
Councillor Harrigan. Councillor Hall.
Yes.
Councillor Finn.
Yes.
Councillor Doyle.
Yes.
Councillor Crew.
Yes.
Councillor Sakachi.
Yes.
Councillor Bondi.
Yes.
Councillor Anderson.
Yes.
Councillor Allen.
Yes.
And Mayor Caniff.
Yes.
Motion passes 16-0.
Okay, we'll move into notice of motion. Councillor Sakachi, Councillor Bondi, then back to Councillor Sakachi, and then Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank
Scott?
you, Mayor. Sorry, go ahead,
Go
Councilor.
ahead. No, go ahead, Councillor Sakachi, you're up first.
May 13th, correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
I, Councillor Anthony Sakachi, here provide notice. I'll be bringing the following motion for a voting discussion on the May 13th meeting of council. Whereas due to low ridership, Municipal Council removed public transit route S1, the beach bus, from the base budget in 2020, which provided seasonal transit service to the community of Erio and Mitchells Bay, and where several inquiries have been made regarding the possibility of reestablishing the service to promote affordable, accessible, feasible transit, be it resolved that administration draft a report outlining the history, costs, and the current financial implications and the business plan feasibility to allow council to be provided current and updated and accurate information.
Councillor Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Whoops. I, Councillor Bondi, hereby provide notice that I will bring forward the following motion at the May 13th council meeting for discussion and voting. concerning the proposed removal of trees from Erio and Victoria Avenue. Number 1, a second opinion regarding the 30 trees on Victoria Avenue and the 17 trees in Erio slated for removal or potential removal be commissioned to a local arborist with a stated emphasis on preservation. Number 2, prior to any tree removal in either location, the Ontario Ministry of the Environment, the LTVCA, and the Sydenham Field Naturalists be consulted to determine if roosting, nesting, or migratory habits will be affected. Regulations and laws regarding this practice to be explored and strictly followed. Turkey vultures, screech owls, and many other species of birds call these trees home. Number 3, in keeping with the municipality of Chatham-Kent's declaration of a climate emergency, other areas should be assessed to ensure we are protecting the environment and also ensuring the safety of our citizens. These areas will include, but not be limited to, the O'Neill Natural Preserve, commonly referred to as Paxton's Bush, CK Dog Park, and all existing parks and officially recognized trails. Upon completion of this assessment, tree management priorities will be determined. Number 4, all trees removed by the municipality of Chatham-Kent to be replaced with an acceptable new tree within 12 months. This will not be exclusive to these areas, but will be policy for the entirety of the municipality. Thank you.
Councillor Sakachi, then Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you. I, Councillor Anthony Sakachi, here provide notice. I'll be bringing the following motion for a voting discussion on the May 13th meeting of Council. Whereas a major area of bylaw complaints from citizens arise from neighborhood issues such as property standards, garbage, and derelict vehicles, and whereas repeat offenders under these bylaws and legislation by property owners is common, and whereas under an existing council motion, administration is reviewing Chatham-Kent's existing powers to address repeat offenses, and whereas some processes to address the neighborhood issues are constrained by existing provincial legislation, and whereas the need for more housing across the province resulting in intensification of existing neighborhoods is likely to exacerbate these neighborhood issues further, and where staff time directed towards neighborhood complaints reduces staff availability to work on growth-related projects which can assist with current housing and growth priorities. Now, therefore, be it resolved, Council direct administration as part of the ongoing work on repeat offenders to prepare a letter to the Attorney General of Ontario and any other applicable ministries requesting a review and enhancement of powers to address repeat offenders of bylaws and provincial legislation which regulate neighborhood issues such as the Building Code Act.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Brock McGregor, hereby provide notice that I'll bring forward the following motion at the May 13th, 2024 council meeting for discussion and voting. Whereas municipal day camps have been an important low-cost resource for families in Chatham-Kent to provide supervision for youth in CK in summer months, and whereas there's been significant feedback from the public regarding camp costs and registration process, therefore administration report back to council with the following. 1, an overview of operational budgets for 2023 and 2024 stay-and-play municipal camps, including costs and revenues by camp location. 2, an overview of the programming included at differing sites. 3, options for registration fee changes to be considered and forwarded to the Budget Committee. 4, an overview of available and utilized individual funding supports, and that this report returned in fall of 2024.
Closed session report, Councillor Crew, and I'll have Councillor Allen second it, please.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Council directed administration on proposed acquisition of land by the municipality with regard to expression of interest, strategic property in Chatham, Section 239(2)(c) of the Municipal Act, labor relations or employee negotiations with regard to QP 12.1 negotiations update, Section 239(2)(d) of the Municipal Act 2001, and received information on a personal matter about an identifiable individual with regard to a citizen appointment to the Blenheim Landfill Liaison Committee, Section 239(2)(b) of the Municipal Act 2001. Council also received information on advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege with regard to homelessness legal considerations, Section 239(2)(f) of the Municipal Act 2001. The following item was postponed to a future meeting, personal matters about identifiable individuals with regard to respectful workplace update, Section 239(2)(b) of the Municipal Act. I so move.
And seconded.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Communication items. Councillor Story, you want to pull out 2J?
I would like to, but I think Councillor Crew is going to do that on my behalf. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's okay. And what's the item number? I'm sorry? 2J. So, this is for the, replacement of the FCM representative, and Councillor Story has been the representative there for a year. So I would like to, make the resolution that whereas the Federation of Canadian Municipalities represents the interests of member municipalities on policy and program matters that fall within the federal jurisdiction, and whereas FCM's Board of Directors is comprised of elected municipal officials from all regions and sizes of communities to form a broad base of support and provide FCM with the united voice required to carry the municipal message to the federal government, and whereas the FCM's annual general meeting will be held in conjunction with the annual conference June 6 to 9, 2024, followed by the election of the FCM's Board of Directors. Be it resolved that Council of the Municipality of Chatham-Kent endorse Allison Story to stand for election on FCM's Board of Directors for the period starting in June 2024, ending in June 2026. And be it further resolved that Council assume all costs associated with Allison Story attending FCM Board of Directors meeting. I so move.
Councillor Harrigan, can I get you to second that, please? Okay, any questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Finn, there was a few items you wanted to pull, so item 2I, and then we'll go to 3A and 3B.
Yes, they all pertain to the same,
Okay.
the free water well testing. Just a question, we do presently offer the free water well testing here in Chatham-Kent?
Jody, do you have the answer?
Sorry, my
Put you on the spot here.
apologies. Could you please repeat the question?
I'm just wondering, we do offer the free water well testing in Chatham-Kent?
Yes, we do. It's a provincially mandated service, but we do support that process.
Okay,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that a letter be written and directed to Minister Lisa Thompson requesting that the province reconsider the decision to phase out free private well water testing in Ontario, and further that this letter be sent to all Ontario municipalities, the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, the Minister of Health, the Chatham-Kent Health Unit, and MPP Trevor Jones, asking for their support.
Hey, Councillor Anderson, you second that?
I'm happy to second that.
Okay, any questions? Okay, add Roma to that, please, yes. You good with that? Okay.
We might as well add AMO and FCM as well.
Sure. All right, so we got seconder. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, put up your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. So that dealt with all three of them. And Councillor Story and Councillor Finn, can I get you to move the rest of the communication items, please?
Happy to move, Mr. Mayor.
Happy to second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Non-agenda business. Councillor Sakachi, followed by Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just wanted to say something briefly. This year, the Blenheim Blades had probably their most remarkable season that I've witnessed since I've been in high school, and that was led by their captain, Craig Spence, who won the defenseman of the year. Had the opportunity to speak with Craig multiple times this year and watch him play. He was an amazing person and an amazing captain, and I just wanted to send my condolences on the behalf of the municipality to Craig's family for his loss. He was a great person, and in the obituary says he had a gentle and kind soul that was balanced by strength and leadership that was evident in sports. Craig could have played anywhere in the last couple of years, but he chose to stay here in Chatham-Kent. He brought a championship to the Maroons and led Blenheim to their best season ever. And I just wanted to say my condolences to all the community members impacted as well as his families. Thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just wanted to remind everyone that May 5th is Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Day, and that there's a number of events in Chatham-Kent from the 3rd to the 5th. You can find those listed on the Let's Talk CK website. And it'll start with a gathering and flag raising here at the Civic Center on Friday at noon, as well as a walk down to 495 King Street West. And then there's a number of events on the 4th and the 5th as well that people can participate in. Thank you.
Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just want to invite everybody out to the Tilbury Senior Fair next week, May 9th, at the Tilbury Arena from 10 a.m. till 1. I think Mayor Caniff is going to be there bringing greetings, and it's the first one back in that venue since COVID, so we're pretty excited about that. I also want to say, I think many of us were at the Community Recognition Awards. Very well done, staff and everyone, and the comments were just so positive about the event. The removal of barriers so family can come and enjoy the time with their loved ones. It's a nice, really well done event, and thank you, Mayor Caniff, and sponsors, CN, I believe. So thank you to all of them, because recognizing, I don't know, what do we have, 20-some people that we recognized? And it was just really well done, and it was really nice to see all those families out celebrating their people who do the work in our community.
Councillor Story.
That was a great event. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to remind everyone at home that our deadline for the Accessibility Advisory Committee Awards is May 15th. So I'll probably mention that one more time, but I wanted to just put that bug in everyone's ear. There's 3 different awards that the Accessibility Advisory Committee reviews. So if there's anyone, and individuals and organizations, excuse me, that you think go above and beyond to help make our community more inclusive and accessible, the application is on our nomination form is on our website, or you can contact our 311 to get the information that way as well. Thank you so much.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just want to remind everyone and invite everyone out. There's a couple flag raisings on Thursday, May 2nd for Community Living. First, Community Living Chatham-Kent. It's at 11 o'clock. I think that one's right here at the Civic Center. And there's also one for Community Living Wellsburg at 3:45 at the Wellsburg municipal office as well outside. And I think in Wellsburg there's going to be an event down at the brewery afterwards as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to follow up on Councillor Crew's comment as well, volunteers are so important. Everywhere I go, there's so many volunteers that make events happen, just make so many things happen. Today I was at Habitat for Humanity, opened up the house there. The thousands of hours of volunteerism that went into building that house. It's amazing, but that's just one piece. So it's great to see all that happening across, and the public-private partnership, CN basically covered the cost of that event as well. So it's, again, corporate partners stepping up to help us do our job here. So I want to thank them. So with that, first and second reading, Councillor Sakachi and Councillor Finn, can I get you to move that, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion carried. Third and final reading, Councillor McGrail and Councillor Bondi.
So moved.
And seconded.
Any questions? Seeing none, motion, or all in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Resolution of council in closed session and adjournment. Councillor Crew and Councillor Anderson, I'll get you to wrap it up for us.
I move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held Monday, May 13th, 2024, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act. I so move.
I happily second.
Anyone opposed to closing it at 8:56? Seeing none, have a great day, everyone.